Welcome to The Key Still in His Pocket by the Glitch Bureau. This book covers Ballinero. The clockmaker Edmund Vale was found at the base of the Harrow Falls church bell tower at 7 minutes past 6 on a Tuesday morning. The tower door was locked from the inside. The only key was in his pocket. The bells had not rung. Three things that should not all be true at the same time. And yet they were. Chapter 1. The Town of Harrow Falls. The morning air in Harrow Falls was crisp, carrying with it a hint of autumn's chill. As the first light painted the sky in hues of orange and pink, the town lay in peaceful slumber, synchronized to the rhythm of the church clock's chimes. This clock was not just a timekeeper. It was the town's heartbeat, dictating the flow of daily life with unwavering precision. Each chime was a cue, a signal that set the wheels of the town's routine in motion. At the heart of this system was Edmund Vale, a man whose life was as meticulously ordered as the gears and springs he tended. Vale was the clockmaker, a title that in Harrow Falls carried a weight akin to mayor or magistrate. His relationship with the clock was one of deep understanding and respect. Every morning, before the town awoke, he would climb the narrow, winding stairs of the bell tower, his lantern casting flickering shadows on the stone walls. Vale's routine was as predictable as the sunrise. Each day, he would wind the clock at precisely the same hour, a ritual observed with the reverence of a sacred rite. His leather ledger, worn from years of use, was a testament to his dedication. It contained meticulous records of every adjustment, each minute correction noted with the care of a surgeon's hand. To the townspeople, Vale's reliability was as certain as the clock's ticking. But on the morning of October 14th, 1932, something was amiss. The town awoke not to the familiar chimes, but to an unsettling silence. The absence of the bells was a void, an anomaly that rippled through Harrow Falls like a stone cast into still water. It was as if time itself had paused, leaving the town suspended in an uneasy limbo. The sexton, a man named Harold Finch, was the first to notice. His duties required him to be at the church early, and when he arrived to find the tower door locked and the bells silent, a knot of unease settled in his stomach. He tried the handle again, more forcefully this time, but the door remained steadfastly closed. With a growing sense of urgency, Finch hurried to fetch the constable. Constable James Porter was a man of action, not one to be easily rattled. Yet, as he approached the church with Finch, he felt a prickle of apprehension. Breaking the lock was a last resort, but with no other choice, he did so with a swift, decisive blow. The door creaked open, revealing the dim interior of the bell tower. What they found inside was a scene that would haunt Harrow Falls for years to come. Edmund Vale lay on the cold stone floor, his body motionless, the key to the tower clutched tightly in his hand. The air was thick with silence, the kind that presses against the ears and fills the mind with uneasy thoughts. Vale's death was a mystery wrapped in impossibility. The door had been locked from the inside, and the only key lay in his lifeless grasp. The windows, narrow and unyielding, offered no escape for an intruder. It was as if the clockmaker had been trapped in a puzzle of his own making. The constable's investigation began immediately. The town, usually so orderly and predictable, was thrown into disarray. Speculation ran rampant, whispers of foul play mingling with disbelief. How could such a thing happen in Harrow Falls, where every tick of the clock was accounted for? As the investigation unfolded, the clock itself became a central character in the unfolding drama. It was discovered that the mechanism had been tampered with, set 22 minutes fast. This discrepancy suggested a deliberate act, a manipulation of time that hinted at motives yet unseen. Edmund Vale's ledger provided the first real clue. An entry dated October 13th at 5:45 a.m. noted, "Mechanism advanced, corrected, third time this month." Someone had been interfering with the clock, moving it forward then back, a fact Vale had quietly documented rather than reported. Attention soon turned to Reverend Aldous Crane, the town's spiritual leader, who had been seen leaving the rectory unusually early on the morning of Vale's death. His explanation of a morning walk for health reasons did little to quell suspicion, especially when his housekeeper confirmed that his routine never began before 6. As the pieces of the puzzle began to fit together, the town's tightly held secrets started to unravel. The clock's manipulation was not a simple prank or act of vandalism. It was a calculated move with deeper implications. The church's financial records revealed a surprising motive. The mill owner, whose influence over the town's economy was considerable, had renegotiated his tithing based on church attendance. By altering the timing of the bells, Reverend Crane had effectively reduced the congregation's numbers, thereby easing his financial obligations to the diocese. Edmund Vale had uncovered this scheme, though he chose to log it rather than expose it. Perhaps he hoped to confront Crane privately, to resolve the matter without public scandal. But the confrontation took a deadly turn, leading to the tragic events of that October morning. The investigation's breakthrough came with the discovery of a second key to the tower. This original key, entrusted to Reverend Crane years earlier, was the Lynch Pin in the unfolding mystery. Crane had used it to enter the tower, strike Vale from a platform above, and then lock the door behind him, leaving the scene undisturbed. As the truth emerged, Harrow Falls was forced to confront the uncomfortable reality that its ordered existence had been built on a foundation of deception. The clock, once a symbol of unity and precision, had become a reminder of the fragility of trust. In the aftermath, the town grappled with the implications of these revelations. The bells, once silent, resumed their familiar chime, marking the passage of time with renewed significance. Life in Harrow Falls slowly returned to its rhythm, though the memory of that fateful morning lingered like a shadow over the town. The story of Edmund Vale and the silent bells of Harrow Falls serves as a poignant reminder of the complexities hidden beneath the surface of even the most orderly communities. It is a testament to the power of time, not just as a measure of hours and minutes, but as a force that shapes lives and reveals truths long hidden. Chapter 2, The Discovery. The morning air was thick with the promise of an ordinary day in Harrow Falls, a town that moved to the rhythm of its church clock. Yet, on this particular morning, the silence was unsettling. The bells that should have announced the dawn remained mute, casting an eerie stillness over the cobblestone streets. The sexton, a man accustomed to the predictable cadence of the clock, paused at the base of the tower. His eyes narrowed at the sight of the locked door, a door that should have been open, welcoming him to his daily duties. Experience shows that in a town like Harrow Falls, where every tick of the clock dictates the lives of its residents, any deviation from the norm is cause for concern. The sexton, feeling the weight of this anomaly, hurried to fetch the constable. The constable, a burly man with a no-nonsense demeanor, arrived with a crowbar in hand, ready to force the door if necessary. The lock gave way with a reluctant groan, revealing the scene within. The sight that greeted them was both shocking and perplexing. Edmund Vale, the town's meticulous clockmaker, lay sprawled on the cold stone floor, his eyes closed in eternal rest. In his right hand, he clutched the key to the tower door, a detail that would haunt the investigation to come. The room was silent, save for the faint creak of the tower's inner workings, now stilled by the absence of Vale's guiding hand. Consider this scenario: a locked room, a dead man, and a key that should have been outside, yet remained within. The constable, accustomed to the straightforward nature of small-town crimes, found himself at a loss. How could Vale have been killed in a room with no apparent exit, the door locked from the inside? The windows, narrow and high, offered no escape route, and the only key lay in the deceased's grasp. As the townspeople gathered, drawn by the news of the discovery, whispers of speculation filled the air. The mystery of the locked door and the silent bells spread like wildfire, igniting the imaginations of all who heard. More often than not, in such close-knit communities, the shock of a crime reverberates far beyond the immediate circle of those involved. It becomes a shared enigma, a puzzle that demands a solution. The next step involves unraveling the details that led to this tragic discovery. As the constable and the sexton stood over Vale's body, the gravity of the situation settled in. Here was a man who had lived his life by the precision of time, now found in a scene that defied logic and order. The investigation would need to delve deep into the intricacies of Vale's life and the clock tower he so faithfully tended. What's crucial here is understanding the context in which Edmund Vale operated. For 11 years, he had been the guardian of the town's time, a role that required not only skill but an unwavering commitment to routine. His life was a series of measured actions, each one documented in a leather ledger he kept under the winding bench. This ledger, a testament to his dedication, would soon become a key piece in the unfolding mystery. As the initial shock began to subside, the constable took charge, instructing the sexton to secure the scene while he summoned additional help. The townspeople, though eager for answers, were kept at bay, their curiosity piqued by the unfolding drama. It was clear that this was no ordinary incident, and the implications of Vale's death would ripple through Harrow Falls for some time to come. The investigation would soon reveal that Vale's death was not an isolated event, but rather the result of a series of calculated actions. The locked door, the silent bells, and the key in Vale's hand were all pieces of a larger puzzle, one that would require careful examination and a keen understanding of human nature. As the constable began to piece together the clues, the true complexity of the situation would come to light. In the days that followed, the constable's efforts would be aided by an unlikely ally. A retired watchmaker turned consulting detective, known for his habit of noting the time of every observation in the margin of his notebook. His expertise in the mechanics of timepieces would prove invaluable as the investigation progressed, shedding light on the intricacies of the clock tower and the events leading up to Vale's untimely demise. The detective's arrival brought a renewed sense of purpose to the investigation. With a practiced eye, he examined the crime scene, noting the position of Vale's body and the condition of the tower's mechanism. His observations, though initially unremarkable to the untrained eye, would soon reveal critical insights into the mystery at hand. As the detective delved deeper into the case, he discovered a series of anomalies that challenged the initial assumptions. The clock's mechanism, set 22 minutes fast, indicated deliberate interference, a fact corroborated by Vale's ledger, which contained entries documenting similar adjustments in the weeks leading up to his death. Someone had been tampering with the clock, and Vale had been quietly logging these changes without reporting them. Further investigation uncovered additional clues, including the suspicious behavior of Reverend Aldous Crane, who had been seen leaving the rectory at an unusually early hour on the morning of Vale's death. Though he claimed to be walking for his health, his housekeeper confirmed that this was not his usual routine. The detective noted these inconsistencies, aware that they could hold the key to unraveling the mystery. As the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place, the detective focused on the locked door and the implications of its presence. If Vale had been killed before 5:30 and the door was locked from the inside, then the killer must have either remained in the tower or never entered it at all. This realization opened up new possibilities, suggesting a level of premeditation and cunning that pointed to a carefully orchestrated plan. The revelation of a second key, hidden away for years, would ultimately prove to be the Lynch Pin in the case. Vale had entrusted this key to Reverend Crane, a fact documented in an old ledger entry that had gone unnoticed until now. Crane's manipulation of the clock's timing, driven by financial motives tied to the church's attendance records, provided a motive for the crime. In a dramatic confrontation, the detective pieced together the timeline of Crane's actions, revealing how he had entered the tower with the original key, struck Vale from above, and locked the door behind him. The evidence was irrefutable, and Crane's admission of guilt brought a sense of closure to the case. The resolution of the mystery left the town of Harrow Falls grappling with the truth and its implications. As the clock tower resumed its rightful place in the rhythm of daily life, the residents reflected on the nature of time and trust, aware that the events of that fateful morning had forever altered their perception of both. In the end, the detective's insights and expertise had not only solved the mystery of Edmund Vale's death, but had also provided valuable lessons in the complexities of human behavior and the consequences of actions left unchecked. The town, now more aware of the delicate balance between routine and chaos, adjusted to a new equilibrium, the clock once again ticking in harmony with the lives it governed. Chapter 3: The investigation begins. The morning air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of damp earth and the lingering chill of the night. As the sun began its hesitant rise over Harrow Falls, its light crept across the cobblestone streets, painting them with hues of gold and shadow. The town, usually bustling with the rhythmic chime of the church bells, lay in an unusual silence, a silence that was both unsettling and profound. Into this quiet walked the retired watchmaker, a man whose life had been defined by the precision of gears and the passage of time. Known simply as the detective, his reputation for solving the unsolvable had earned him a quiet respect in circles that mattered. Today, his steps were measured, his gaze sharp as he approached the church, the site of Edmund Vale's mysterious demise. As he crossed the threshold of the churchyard, the detective paused, taking in the scene with a practiced eye. The tower loomed above, its silhouette stark against the morning sky. The locked door, the silent bells, and the body of the clockmaker found within. Each piece of the puzzle demanded his attention. The detective's mind, much like the intricate mechanisms he once crafted, began to turn over the possibilities. He entered the tower, the air inside cool and still, carrying the faint scent of oil and metal. The stone floor was cold beneath his feet, and the walls seemed to echo the silence that had settled over Harrow Falls. Here, in this confined space, Edmund Vale had met his end. The detective knelt beside the spot where Vale's body had been found, his eyes tracing the outlines of the scene as he reconstructed the events in his mind. Vale, a man of meticulous habits, would not have left the clock unwound without cause. The detective knew this from the detailed logs Vale kept. Logs that now lay open on the winding bench, revealing the entries that hinted at tampering. Mechanism advanced, corrected, third time this month. The words were a whisper from the past, a clue to the interference Vale had quietly documented. The detective's fingers brushed the pages, his mind piecing together the implications. Someone had been altering the clock's timing, moving it forward, then back. The question was why, and more importantly, who? His thoughts turned to the locked door, a conundrum that defied easy explanation. If Vale had been killed before 5:30 and the door was locked from the inside, then the killer had not exited through conventional means. He stood, pacing the small space as he considered the possibilities. The windows, narrow and high, offered no escape. The only key had been found in Vale's hand, a detail that seemed both significant and perplexing. The detective's gaze shifted to the winding handle, the instrument of Vale's demise. It had been cleaned and replaced, a calculated act that suggested premeditation. Outside, the town began to stir, unaware of the silent drama unfolding within the tower. The detective, however, was acutely aware of the stakes. The clues were there, hidden in the minutiae of Vale's life and death. It was up to him to uncover them, to bring clarity to the confusion. He turned his attention to the Reverend Aldous Crane, a man whose actions on the morning of Vale's death had raised questions. Seen leaving the rectory at 5:10 a.m., Crane's explanation of an early morning walk did not align with his usual routine. The detective noted this discrepancy, aware that such deviations often held deeper meanings. The clock's mechanism, examined after the incident, had been set 22 minutes fast. This anomaly suggested a deliberate attempt to alter the bell's schedule. Had the clock struck 6 as calibrated, it would have done so at 5:38 a.m., an hour when the town slept, and the mill shift had yet to begin. The detective pondered this, considering the implications. Someone had needed the bell to ring early, or perhaps not to ring at all. As he pieced together the timeline, the detective's thoughts returned to the tower's locked door. The anomaly was immediate. If the killer did not leave through the door, then they were either still in the tower when the sexton arrived, or they had never been inside at all. This realization shifted the framework of the investigation, suggesting a complexity that required a deeper understanding of the mechanics involved. He recalled the town's reliance on the church clock, a dependency that extended beyond mere timekeeping. The bells governed the rhythm of life in Harrow Falls, their chimes marking the passage of time and the transitions of daily life. Vale's role in this delicate balance had been crucial, his precision ensuring the town's harmony. Yet, beneath this veneer of order lay a dissonance, a manipulation that pointed to Reverend Crane. The detective, aware of the power dynamics at play, considered the financial implications. The church's ledger, when examined, revealed a renegotiated tithing arrangement with the mill owner, an agreement based on attendance at morning services. The bell's timing had been quietly adjusted, reducing attendance and, by extension, Crane's obligations to the diocese. Vale, ever the observer, had discovered this interference. He had not reported it, choosing instead to log the discrepancies. This silent confrontation with Crane had set the stage for his demise. The detective, understanding the gravity of this revelation, knew he was closing in on the truth. He paused, his gaze returning to the tower's entrance. The locked door, the key in Vale's hand, the silence of the bells. Each element was a cog in a larger mechanism. As he considered the possibility of a second key, the pieces began to align. Vale had kept a duplicate key made 9 years prior, the original entrusted to Crane for safekeeping. This revelation reframed the investigation. Crane had entered the tower with the original key, struck Vale from the platform above, cleaned the handle, and locked the door with the original key upon leaving. Vale's body, falling against the rope, had remained with his own copy of the key clutched in his hand. The bells had never rung, their silence preserving the secret until now. The detective, with the clarity of a craftsman who understands the intricacies of his work, knew he had uncovered the truth. The mechanism of Vale's death had been designed, wounded, and released with precision. It was not the work of chance, but of careful calculation. As he left the tower, the detective's mind was already turning to the next steps. The confrontation with Crane, the unraveling of the motive, and the resolution of the case lay ahead. But for now, he allowed himself a moment of reflection, aware of the weight of time and its relentless march forward. In Harrow Falls, the clock would soon tick again, its chimes restoring the rhythm of life. But beneath the surface, the echoes of this investigation would linger, a reminder of the delicate balance between time, trust, and the truth. Chapter 4: Clues and Red Herrings. The morning air was crisp, a thin veil of fog clinging to the cobblestone streets of Harrow Falls. As the town slowly awoke, a sense of unease lingered, much like the mist that refused to lift. The clock tower, usually a symbol of precision and reliability, stood silent, its bells having failed to chime at the break of day. The detective, a retired watchmaker himself, felt the weight of this silence as he stood in the shadow of the tower, contemplating the enigma that had unfolded. Picture this: a town that ticks in unison with the church clock, where every aspect of life is synchronized to the chime of the bells. For 11 years, Edmund Vale had been the guardian of this rhythm, a man so meticulous that even the slightest deviation would not escape his notice. Yet on the morning of October 14, 1932, something had gone terribly awry. Vale was found dead at the base of the tower, the key to the locked door clutched in his lifeless hand. The bells, ominously silent, marked the beginning of a mystery that would test the limits of logic and deduction. The detective's first task was to examine Vale's leather ledger, a chronicle of clock adjustments that spoke volumes in its understated entries. The most recent note, dated October 13th at 5:45 a.m., read, "Mechanism advanced, corrected, third time this month." Someone had been tampering with the clock's timing, a fact Vale had chosen to document rather than disclose. This clue, subtle yet significant, hinted at a deeper conspiracy. As the detective turned the pages, he considered the implications. Why would someone want to alter the clock's schedule? The answer lay in the very fabric of Harrow Falls' daily life. The clock dictated the town's rhythm, from the mill shifts to the morning service at the church. A change in its timing could disrupt the entire community, but to what end? Then there was Reverend Aldous Crane, a figure of interest whose actions on the morning of Vale's death raised eyebrows. Witnesses reported seeing him leave the rectory at 5:10 a.m., an unusual departure from his routine. His housekeeper confirmed that Crane's morning walks never began before 6. What prompted this deviation? The detective knew that understanding Crane's motives was crucial to unraveling the mystery. Meanwhile, the investigation uncovered potential red herrings, each adding layers of complexity to the case. Vale's nephew, Thomas, had debts that could have been alleviated by inheriting the watchmaking shop. He was in town the night before the incident, yet lacked a solid alibi. However, without a key to the tower, his involvement seemed improbable. Further complicating matters was the discovery of a forged ledger among Vale's belongings. At first glance, it suggested that Vale might have been fabricating maintenance records. But upon closer inspection, the original ledger showed no signs of falsification. The copy had been planted, a deliberate attempt to mislead the investigation. As the detective pieced together these disparate elements, a pattern began to emerge. The clock's mechanism was found to be 22 minutes fast, indicating that had it struck 6, it would have done so at 5:38 a.m. This detail suggested a deliberate attempt to manipulate the bell's schedule, either to ring them early or to prevent them from ringing at all. In the midst of these revelations, the detective's mind returned to the question of the locked door. If Vale was killed before 5:30 and the door was locked from the inside, how did the killer escape? The answer lay not in the physical constraints of the tower, but in the intricacies of human behavior and motive. The breakthrough came with the discovery of a second key. Not a duplicate, but the original key that Vale had entrusted to Reverend Crane years ago. This revelation reframed the investigation entirely. Crane's access to the tower and his manipulation of the clock mechanism pointed to a motive rooted in financial gain. The church's financial records revealed that the mill owner had renegotiated his tithing based on attendance at morning services. By altering the service time, Crane could reduce reported attendance, thereby lessening his financial obligations to the diocese. With this knowledge, the detective reconstructed the sequence of events. Crane had entered the tower with the original key, struck Vale from the platform above, and meticulously cleaned the weapon before locking the door behind him. Vale's body had fallen against the rope, his hand still clutching his own copy of the key. The bells, silenced by design, bore witness to a crime of precision and premeditation. This method shows promise in understanding how seemingly unrelated clues can converge to reveal the truth. The detective's approach, rooted in observation and deduction, serves as a reminder of the power of patience and attention to detail. By focusing on the nuances of human behavior and the interplay of motive and opportunity, he was able to navigate through a web of misdirection to uncover the core of the mystery. As the chapter draws to a close, it's worth noting the importance of questioning assumptions and remaining open to unexpected connections. The case of Edmund Vale serves as a testament to the intricacies of human nature and the lengths to which individuals will go to achieve their ends. In the end, the detective's insight and perseverance brought clarity to a town shrouded in uncertainty, restoring the harmony that had been so meticulously disrupted. In the grand tapestry of Harrow Falls, the clock once again ticks in harmony, a symbol of resilience and the enduring pursuit of truth. As the detective reflects on the case, he is reminded of the delicate balance between time and trust and the profound impact of a single moment on the course of events. Chapter 5, Unraveling the Mechanism. The early morning mist lingered like a whisper over Harrow Falls, a town that moved to the rhythm of its church clock. On this particular day, however, the clock tower stood silent, its bells unstruck, leaving the town in an unsettling stillness. The detective, a man whose life had once been as precise as the mechanisms he now studied, found himself drawn into the core of a mystery that seemed to tick with its own relentless cadence. With the discovery of Edmund Vale's lifeless body, the detective's mind was a whirl of questions and possibilities. Vale, a meticulous clockmaker, had been found at the base of the tower, the only key to the door clutched in his hand. The locked door, the silent bells, and the absence of any other entry or exit painted a picture of impossibility. Yet, the detective knew that somewhere within the gears and cogs of this enigma lay the truth, waiting to be unraveled. It was during a quiet moment of contemplation, staring at the leather-bound ledger that Vale had kept so diligently, that the detective stumbled upon a revelation, a second key. This discovery was not merely a physical object. It was the pivot upon which the entire investigation turned. The existence of a second key suggested a broader conspiracy, a manipulation of events as intricate as the clock's own mechanism. His thoughts raced back to the entries Vale had made, noting the unexplained adjustments to the clock's timing. Someone had been tampering with time itself, and the detective was determined to find out why. Delving deeper into the church's financial records, the detective uncovered a motive as old as time: greed. The records revealed a clandestine arrangement between Reverend Aldous Crane and the town's mill owner, a man whose wealth was as vast as his influence. The detective pieced together the puzzle, Crane had been adjusting the clock to alter the timing of the church services, thereby manipulating the mill workers' attendance. This deception allowed Crane to underreport congregation numbers, reducing his financial obligations to the diocese. The detective's realization was like the final piece of a watch falling into place. The mechanism at play was not just within the clock tower, but was a reflection of the town's own power dynamics. The clock's silence on the morning of Vale's death was not an anomaly but a deliberate act, orchestrated to maintain control over time and, by extension, over the town itself. As the detective continued to piece together the timeline, the tension in the narrative mounted. He could almost hear the ticking of the clock, counting down to the moment of revelation. He envisioned Crane entering the tower with the original key, striking Vale from above, and then locking the door behind him. It was a plan executed with the precision of a master craftsman, leaving no room for error, but the detective's sharp mind saw through the facade. He understood that the mechanism was not just a physical construct, but a metaphor for the control Crane sought to exert over the town. The bells, which had always marked the passage of time for Harrow Falls, had become a tool of manipulation, their silence a testament to the power struggles hidden beneath the town's surface. The detective's pursuit of the truth was relentless. He knew that to solve the mystery, he had to confront Crane, to bring to light the shadows that had been cast over the town. In a confrontation as tense as the winding of a clock spring, the detective laid bare the evidence, each piece falling into place with a resounding clarity. Crane's admission of guilt was inevitable, the weight of his actions finally catching up with him. The revelation of the second key, long hidden in the church's records, was the final stroke that sealed his fate. The detective watched as Crane's carefully constructed world unraveled, the mechanism he had built to control others now a testament to his own downfall. In the aftermath, the town of Harrow Falls was left to grapple with the truth. The detective reflected on the nature of time and trust, understanding that while the clock would once again tick in harmony, the events of that fateful morning would linger in the town's memory. The clock tower, once a symbol of precision and order, now stood as a reminder of the complex interplay between time, power, and human nature. As the detective walked away from the tower, he felt a sense of closure. He had unraveled the mechanism, not just of the clock, but of the intricate web of deceit that had ensnared the town. The bells would ring again, marking the passage of time, but the detective knew that the true measure of time was in the moments of clarity and truth that he had helped bring to light. Chapter 6: The Confrontation. The air inside the church was thick with the scent of old wood and candle wax, the kind of atmosphere that seemed to hold its breath, waiting for something to break the silence. The detective stood in the nave, eyes fixed on Reverend Crane, whose face was a study in controlled calm. This was the moment of reckoning, the confrontation that would unravel the tightly wound threads of deception and betrayal that had led to Edmund Vale's untimely death. Reverend Crane, the detective began, his voice steady. We need to discuss the events of the morning of October 14th. I believe you know more than you've let on. Crane's eyes flickered, a brief flash of something unguarded, but he remained silent. The detective continued, laying out the timeline with the precision of a clockmaker himself. Vale was meticulous, almost to a fault. His ledger entries show a pattern. The clock's mechanism was being interfered with, advanced and corrected multiple times. This tampering wasn't random, it was deliberate. Someone needed the clock to chime at a different time, and I believe that someone was you. The Reverend's lips tightened, but still he said nothing. The detective pressed on, his words gaining momentum. On the morning of Vale's death, you were seen leaving the rectory unusually early. You claimed it was for your health, but your housekeeper confirmed you never left before 6. Yet, you were out at 5:10 a.m., a curious deviation from your routine. Crane shifted slightly, the only indication that the detective's words were hitting their mark. Moreover, the detective continued, when I examined the clock's mechanism, it was set 22 minutes fast. Had it struck at 6, it would have sounded at 5:38 a.m., before the town was awake, before the mill shift began. This was no accident. It was a calculated move to prevent the bells from ringing at the expected time. The detective paused, letting the weight of his words settle. He could see the tension in Crane's posture, the way his hands gripped the edge of the pew, knuckles white against the polished wood. "But the most telling piece of evidence," the detective said, his voice softening, "is the second key. The original key to the tower, which you've had in your possession for 9 years. Vale had a copy made, but he entrusted the original to you. A single entry in a ledger from 1923 confirms it. And with that key, you entered the tower on the morning of his death." Crane's composure finally cracked. "I had no choice," he whispered, the words barely audible. "I tried to reason with him, but he was going to expose everything. The church, the mill owner. It would have ruined us all." The detective nodded, understanding the desperation that had driven Crane to such lengths. "You manipulated the clock to alter the service times, reducing attendance and thus your obligation to report actual numbers to the diocese. Vale discovered your interference and confronted you. But instead of reporting it, he logged it, quietly building a case against you." Crane's shoulders slumped, the fight leaving him. "I thought I could persuade him to stay silent," he admitted. "But when he refused, I panicked. I struck him from above, cleaned the handle, and left. I locked the door with the original key, and Vale's body fell against the rope, his hands still clutching his own copy." The detective watched as the full weight of Crane's actions seemed to crash over him, leaving him hollow and defeated. "He had kept 2 keys for 9 years, the detective said softly, but he only needed one of them to die. The truth was out, the mystery resolved, but the implications were far-reaching. Harrow Falls would have to grapple with the revelation of Crane's betrayal, the manipulation of time that had governed their lives for so long. As the detective prepared to leave, he paused by the door, turning back to the Reverend. "Time is a strange thing," he mused. "We measure it, try to control it, but in the end, it reveals everything. The truth, like time, cannot be hidden forever." With that, he stepped out into the crisp morning air, the clock tower looming above him. The bells would ring again, marking the hours as they always had, but the town would never be quite the same. The detective had brought the truth to light, and in doing so, had restored the balance. Harrow Falls would heal, its people adjusting to a new rhythm, the clock once again ticking in harmony. Chapter 7 Resolution. The morning sun cast a gentle glow over Harrow Falls, illuminating the streets where shadows of uncertainty had lingered. The mystery of Edmund Vale's death had finally unraveled, leaving the town to grapple with the unsettling truth. As the detective stood at the base of the bell tower, he pondered the intricate dance of time, trust, and the human condition. Imagine you're a resident of Harrow Falls, your life rhythmically aligned with the church clock. The revelation that Reverend Crane had manipulated this rhythm for personal gain was a betrayal that cut deep. Yet, the town's resilience was palpable. As the clock resumed its rightful chime, there was a collective sigh of relief, a return to normalcy. Experience shows that communities, much like individuals, possess an incredible capacity to adapt. The detective observed this transformation, noting how the townsfolk began to rebuild trust, not just in the clock, but in each other. The mill workers, merchants, and families adjusted their routines, finding comfort in the familiar tick of the restored mechanism. Beyond that, the detective's reflections offered a poignant lesson. Time, though constant, is a fragile thread that weaves through our lives, binding us to moments of joy, sorrow, and revelation. He understood now that trust is not merely given, but earned, and once broken, it requires patience and understanding to mend. As the chapter of Harrow Falls mystery closed, the detective left the town with a sense of fulfillment. The bells tolled once more, their sound a testament to resilience and renewal. Don't overlook the power of community in the face of adversity. It is a force that, when united, can restore harmony and balance. As the first light of dawn caressed the sleepy town of Harrow Falls, a gentle mist hung over the cobblestone streets, whispering secrets of the night past. The town, nestled between rolling hills and lush greenery, seemed to hold its breath in the early morning stillness. This was a place where time moved with a deliberate grace, dictated by the rhythmic chimes of the church clock. As the golden hues of sunrise kissed the church tower, the clock's hands stood resolute at 7 minutes past 6, a detail unnoticed by most but crucial to the unfolding events. Edmund Vale, the town's revered clockmaker, was a man whose life mirrored the precision of the mechanisms he so meticulously tended. With each tick of the clock, Vale ensured that Harrow Falls moved in harmony with time. His daily routine was a dance of precision and dedication, from the moment he rose before dawn to wind the clock, to the careful logging of every adjustment in his leather-bound ledger. To the townsfolk, Vale was more than just a clockmaker. He was the guardian of their temporal order, a linchpin in the community's seamless flow of life. Vale's presence was a comforting constant in Harrow Falls, a town that relied on the church clock as much as the sun for its rhythms. The merchants timed their deliveries by its chimes, and the mill workers began and ended their shifts with its toll. The townspeople's trust in the clock's accuracy was unwavering, a trust that extended naturally to Vale himself. This trust would soon be tested in ways they could scarcely imagine, as the clock's failure to chime on a fateful morning would disrupt the very fabric of their lives. On this particular morning, an unsettling silence enveloped Harrow Falls. The clock that had always been a beacon of reliability stood silent, its bells refusing to announce the start of the day. The town square, usually bustling with the early stirrings of life, was now a tableau of confusion and concern. The absence of the familiar chimes created an undercurrent of unease, a prelude to the mystery that would soon envelop the town. Among the townspeople, whispers began to circulate, hinting at the tension that lay beneath the surface of their orderly lives. Reverend Aldous Crane, a figure of authority and respect, occasionally cast odd glances at Vale, a subtle indication of the complexities yet to be revealed. Rumors about Vale's nephew Thomas and his gambling debts added another layer of intrigue, a red herring in the tapestry of suspicion that was beginning to form. The emotional underpinnings of Harrow Falls were as delicate as the mechanism of the clock itself. The townspeople's sense of security, so closely tied to the clock's chimes, now felt fragile and uncertain. As they gathered in the square, waiting for the bells that never rang, their collective anxiety grew. The silence of the clock was more than just an absence of sound. It was a void that threatened to unravel the town's carefully woven tapestry of time and trust. As the morning unfolded, the sexton made his way toward the church tower, his footsteps echoing in the stillness. The locked door and the silent bells loomed ominously, casting long shadows over the town's sense of normalcy. This moment marked the beginning of a mystery that would challenge Harrow Falls and its inhabitants, drawing them into a narrative of intrigue and discovery. The sexton's discovery would propel the narrative forward, bridging the gap between the familiar and the unknown. As the constable arrived and broke the lock, the scene within the tower revealed a grim tableau. Edmund Vale's lifeless body lay on the stone floor, the key to the tower clutched in his hand. This unsettling discovery would set the stage for a deeper exploration of Harrow Falls, its people, and the intricate dance of time and trust that define their lives. Harrow Falls was a town that lived and breathed by the rhythm of the church clock. Its residents set their watches by its chimes, and its merchants orchestrated their deliveries with its tolls. For 11 years, Edmund Vale had been the man responsible for this precision, a role he embraced with a meticulousness that bordered on eccentricity. His life was a testament to the art of timekeeping, a craft he had honed with unwavering dedication. Vale's commitment to the clock was evident in every aspect of his life. He wound the mechanism at the same hour each day, a ritual as sacred as any in the town's religious observances. His leather ledger, filled with careful entries, chronicled every adjustment and anomaly, a testament to his devotion to accuracy and order. Despite his quiet demeanor, Vale observed everything, a man who measured the world in seconds and trusted it accordingly. On the morning of October 4th, 1932, the clock's silence marked a departure from the norm, a dissonance that would soon reverberate through Harrow Falls. As the sexton and constable uncovered the truth within the tower, the town's reliance on the clock and on Vale himself would be called into question. The mystery of the locked door and the silent bells would challenge the very foundation of their trust and order. The incident that unfolded within the church tower was as precise as the mechanisms Vale had tended. His death, a single blow to the base of the skull, was a chilling testament to the precision and intent of the act. The long brass winding handle, cleaned and replaced, was a silent witness to the crime, a clue that would unravel the mystery of the locked door and the silent bells. The investigation that followed would reveal a tapestry of clues and red herrings, each thread leading to a deeper understanding of the events that had transpired. Vale's ledger, with its entry for October 13th, hinted at interference with the clock's timing, a manipulation that had gone unnoticed until now. Reverend Crane's early morning walk, a departure from his usual routine, added another layer of intrigue, a piece of the puzzle that would ultimately reveal the truth. As the narrative unfolded, the detective's realization of a second key would prove pivotal. This revelation, coupled with an examination of the church's financial records, would uncover the motive behind Crane's manipulation of the clock. The detective's methodical approach, a reflection of Vale's own meticulous nature, would piece together the timeline of Crane's actions, leading to a confrontation that would bring the truth to light. The resolution of the mystery would leave Harrow Falls grappling with the implications of the events that had transpired. The town's collective sense of time and trust, once so steadfast, would be forever altered by the revelations within the church tower. As the clock resumed its rhythmic chimes, the town would find a new equilibrium, a testament to the enduring nature of time and the human spirit. In the heart of Harrow Falls, where time was as much a part of the landscape as the rolling hills and whispering trees, Edmund Vale's routine was a steadfast rhythm that harmonized with the town's daily life. Each morning, as the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, Edmund would rise with a sense of purpose that was as precise as the ticking of the clocks he so lovingly tended. His modest home, a reflection of his meticulous nature, was a sanctuary of order. Every object had its place, every task its time. The morning began with the ritual of tea, brewed to perfection, its aroma mingling with the crisp morning air that seeped through the slightly ajar window. The sound of a sparrow's song was his cue to sit by the kitchen table, the delicate clink of porcelain a gentle accompaniment to the rustling pages of the morning paper. Edmund's journey to the church was a path well worn by years of repetition, each step a testament to his unwavering dedication. The cobblestone streets of Harrow Falls echoed with the soft tap of his shoes, a sound as familiar to the townsfolk as the chiming of the church bells. Greetings met him at every corner, a nod here, a wave there, each interaction a thread in the fabric of community life. As he approached the church, the grand structure loomed with an air of solemnity, its clock tower standing as a sentinel over the town. Edmund's role as the keeper of time was one of quiet pride, a responsibility he held with reverence. The church clock, with its intricate mechanisms and steadfast hands, was more than just a timepiece. It was a symbol of the town's harmony, a harmony that Edmund had maintained with meticulous care. Inside the tower, the air was cool and still, the only sound the gentle ticking of the clock's inner workings. Edmund's hands moved with practiced precision, winding the mechanism, checking the gears, logging every adjustment in his leather-bound ledger. This logbook, now a crucial piece of evidence, was a testament to his diligence, each entry a snapshot of his unwavering commitment to his craft. Yet, as the narrative unfolds, subtle shifts in Edmund's routine begin to emerge, unnoticed by those around him but significant in hindsight. There were moments of hesitation, a slight pause in his step, a furrowed brow as he studied the clock's face. These deviations, small and seemingly inconsequential, were the first whispers of the storm that would soon engulf Harrow Falls. On the morning of October 14th, 1932, the tranquility of Edmund's routine was shattered. The bells did not ring, the clock remained silent, and the town, accustomed to the comforting rhythm of its chimes, was left in a state of unease. The absence of sound was a void that reverberated through the streets, a stark reminder of the disruption that had taken place. For the retired watchmaker turned detective, Edmund's absence was deeply personal. The detective, a man who had once shared Edmund's passion for precision, found himself drawn into the mystery, compelled by a sense of duty and a desire for justice. As he delved into the details of Edmund's life, the detective's reflections became a conduit for exploring themes of time, trust, and the fragility of human connections. In practice, the detective's investigation was a journey through time itself, each clue a stepping stone toward understanding the events that had unfolded. The discovery of the second key, a revelation that rewrote the narrative, was a moment of clarity, a piece of the puzzle that brought the picture into focus. The detective's musings on Edmund's legacy, on the restored harmony of the clock, served as a poignant reminder of the enduring impact one life can have on a community. As the chapter draws to a close, the broader implications of the mystery's resolution come into view. Harrow Falls, a town once defined by its adherence to time, now faced the challenge of healing and adjustment. The detective's reflections, rich with insights and understanding, offered a path forward, a way for the community to reconcile with the past and embrace the future. Edmund Vale's routine, once a symbol of stability, had become a catalyst for change. His life and the mystery surrounding his death had left an indelible mark on Harrow Falls, a testament to the power of one man's dedication and the intricate dance of time and trust. As the town moved forward, the clock once again ticking in harmony, the legacy of Edmund Vale lived on, a reminder of the delicate balance between the passage of time and the enduring strength of community bonds. The morning of October 14, 1932, dawned with an eerie silence over Harrow Falls. The town, accustomed to the rhythmic chimes of the church bells, stirred restlessly in the absence of their familiar herald. For 11 years, the clock tower had been the heartbeat of the community, its precision maintained by the meticulous Edmund Vale. Yet on this fateful morning, the bells remained silent, and the town itself seemed to hold its breath. Edmund Vale was a man of routine, a characteristic that endeared him to the townspeople who relied on his punctuality. His commitment to the clock was unwavering, and he treated its maintenance with the same reverence a conductor gives to an orchestra. Each morning, he would climb the narrow stairs to the tower, wind the mechanism, and ensure its accuracy with a diligence bordering on obsession. But on this particular morning, Vale did not make his rounds. The bells did not strike 6, and when the sexton arrived at past, he found the door locked tight, silence reigning above. The sexton, a man of practical concerns, did not linger in uncertainty. He fetched the constable, who, with some reluctance, broke the lock. Inside, they discovered Vale's lifeless body sprawled on the cold stone floor, the key to the tower clutched in his right hand. The scene was a paradox, a riddle wrapped in the enigma of a locked room. The door had been secured from the inside, and yet here lay Vale, the only key in his possession. The investigation that followed was as methodical as Vale himself had been. The constable, a man of limited imagination but thorough in his duties, began piecing together the fragments of that morning. Vale had been killed by a single, precise blow to the base of his skull, delivered with the very tool of his trade, the long brass winding handle. It was found cleaned and returned to its rightful place, a macabre testament to the killer's meticulousness. The crime scene presented a puzzle of locked doors and silent bells, a mystery that demanded the skills of an expert. Enter the retired watchmaker turned consulting detective, a man known for his habit of noting the time of every observation in the margin of his notebook. He approached the case with the same precision he had once applied to timepieces, examining each detail with a scrutinizing eye. Initial clues began to surface as the detective delved into Vale's life and work. The first was physical. Vale's ledger, a leather-bound tome of adjustments and calibrations, revealed an unsettling pattern. On October 13th, at 5:45 a.m., Vale had logged an entry. Mechanism advanced, corrected, third time this month. Someone had been tampering with the clock, shifting its time forward, only for Vale to correct it quietly, choosing to record the interference rather than report it. The second clue was behavioral. Reverend Aldous Crane, a figure of authority in the town, was seen leaving the rectory at 5:10 a.m. on the morning of the death. He claimed to be walking for his health, a routine he supposedly adhered to each day. However, his housekeeper confirmed that Crane's morning constitutionals never began before 6. This deviation from routine was noted by the detective, a thread to be pulled at a later time. The third clue was time-based, centered around the clock itself. When examined post-mortem, the mechanism was found to be 22 minutes fast. Had it struck 6 as calibrated, it would have rung at 5:38 a.m., a time before the town was awake, before the mill shifts began. Someone had intended for the bells to ring early, or perhaps not at all. As the detective sifted through these clues, two red herrings emerged, each a potential distraction from the true narrative. The first involved Vale's nephew, Thomas, who had debts in Providence and a vested interest in the watchmaking shop. He had been in Harrow Falls the previous night and lacked a solid alibi. Yet he had never possessed a key to the tower, and the constraints of the locked door seemed to exonerate him. The second red herring was a forged copy of Vale's ledger, found among his personal effects. It suggested falsification of maintenance records, an implication that might have tarnished Vale's reputation. However, a closer examination of the original ledger revealed no such deception. The copy was a plant, a distraction from the true motive. The detective's reconstruction of events led to a pivotal realization. If Vale was killed before 5:30 and the door was locked from the inside, the killer had not exited through the door. They were either still within the tower when the sexton arrived, or they had never entered at all. This latter possibility suggested a mechanism, a plan executed with precision. In the course of the investigation, a crucial discovery was made: the existence of a second key. Not a duplicate, but the original key to the tower, entrusted to Reverend Crane by Vale himself years prior. This revelation opened a new avenue of inquiry, leading the detective to examine the church's financial records. Here, the motive became clear. The mill owner, a man with significant influence over the town's economy, had renegotiated his tithing arrangement based on church attendance. By manipulating the clock to alter service times, Crane had reduced his obligation to report actual congregation numbers, a quiet deception with financial benefits. Vale had uncovered this manipulation and confronted Crane, a confrontation that led to his untimely death. Crane, using the original key, had entered the tower, struck Vale from a platform above, cleaned the handle, and locked the door behind him, leaving Vale's body to be discovered with his own copy of the key. The confrontation between the detective and Crane was inevitable. The detective, armed with the evidence of Crane's guilt and the motive behind his actions, presented his findings with the same precision he had applied to his craft. Crane's admission of guilt was a reluctant acknowledgement of the truth, a truth that had remained hidden behind the locked door of the tower. As Harrow Falls grappled with the implications of the crime, the town began to adjust to a new equilibrium. The clock, once again under the care of a dedicated keeper, resumed its role as the town's heartbeat, its chimes marking the passage of time with renewed purpose. The detective, reflecting on the nature of time and trust, left the town with a final observation. He had kept two keys for 9 years. He only ever needed one of them to die. The resolution of the case brought closure to the town, but it also left a lingering question about the nature of trust and the passage of time. Harrow Falls, a town once bound by the precision of its clock, had learned a lesson about the fragility of its own rhythms. And as the clock ticked on, the town moved forward, its people more aware of the delicate balance between time and truth. The morning air was crisp as the sexton, a man of routine and reverence, approached the Harrow Falls church. The sun had barely begun its ascent, casting a pale light over the cobblestone path that led to the towering structure. As he reached the base of the bell tower, a familiar, comforting sight for years, he noticed something was amiss. The silence was unsettling. The bells had not rung to mark the hour. The sexton paused, a chill creeping up his spine, not from the morning cold but from a foreboding sense of unease. He reached for the door handle, expecting the usual creak of hinges and the echo of his footsteps on the stone stairs. Instead, he found the door locked, an anomaly in his otherwise predictable world. He jiggled the handle, but it held firm, a silent guardian to whatever lay beyond. His mind raced through possibilities, but none provided comfort. With a growing sense of urgency, he decided to fetch the constable. The constable arrived, his expression a mix of curiosity and concern. With a forceful shove, the lock gave way, and the door swung open to reveal the dimly lit interior of the tower. As they ascended, each step echoed with a hollow resonance, amplifying the tension that hung in the air. At the top they found him, Edmund Vale, lying motionless on the cold stone floor, the key clutched tightly in his hand. The scene was surreal. Vale, the man who had meticulously cared for the clock for over a decade, lay lifeless, the very key to his sanctuary gripped in his fist. The constable knelt beside him, noting the absence of any other means of entry or exit. The windows, narrow slits designed for ventilation, offered no escape route. The only door had been locked from the inside. It was a puzzle, a locked room mystery that defied immediate explanation. As news of the incident spread through Harrow Falls, the town was cast into a state of bewilderment. The clock, a symbol of order and regularity, had stopped, and with it, the rhythm of daily life. Merchants hesitated, unsure of when to open their shops. The mill workers lingered, uncertain of the shift start. The entire town seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the bells that never tolled. Speculation ran rampant. Some whispered of foul play, others of a tragic accident. But the facts were immutable. Vale was dead, the door was locked, and the bells had remained silent. It was a conundrum that required more than just a constable's intuition. It demanded the keen eye of someone who understood the intricacies of time and machinery. Enter the retired watchmaker turned detective, a man who approached mysteries with the precision of a craftsman and the curiosity of a scholar. He arrived in Harrow Falls with little fanfare, his presence marked only by the quiet ticking of his pocket watch. His method was simple, yet profound: observe, note, and deduce. As he examined the scene, he began to piece together the fragments of a narrative that lay hidden beneath the surface. The first clue lay in Vale's ledger, a testament to his meticulous nature. The entry for October 13th at 5:45 a.m. read, "Mechanism advanced, corrected, third time this month." It was a subtle hint, a whisper of interference that Vale had chosen to document rather than disclose. Someone had been tampering with the clock, adjusting its timing for reasons unknown. The detective's attention then turned to Reverend Aldous Crane, a man of the cloth with a penchant for early morning walks. Witnesses had seen him leaving the rectory at 5:10 a.m. on the morning of Vale's death, a deviation from his usual routine. His housekeeper confirmed that he typically began his walks after 6, raising questions about his movements that morning. Further examination of the clock revealed it was set 22 minutes fast. Had it struck 6 as calibrated, the bells would have rung at 5:38 a.m., a time when the town remained in slumber. It suggested a deliberate attempt to manipulate the schedule, to either hasten or delay the chime. Red herrings emerged, clouding the investigation. Vale's nephew, Thomas, had debts in Providence and stood to inherit the watchmaking shop. His presence in Harrow Falls the previous night aroused suspicion, yet he lacked the means to access the tower. A forged ledger found among Vale's effects further complicated matters, but a closer inspection revealed it to be a plant, an attempt to mislead. As the detective delved deeper, a realization dawned: the existence of a second key. Not a duplicate, but the original, entrusted to Reverend Crane years ago. Vale had made a copy when the original showed signs of wear, intending to retire it. Yet the original remained with Crane, a silent accomplice to the unfolding drama. Motivation crystallized with the discovery of the church's financial records. The mill owner had renegotiated his tithing based on attendance at morning service, which had been subtly manipulated by altering the bell schedule. Crane's interference was not born of malice but of necessity, a desperate attempt to balance the books without drawing attention to dwindling congregations. The detective reconstructed the sequence of events with methodical precision. Crane had entered the tower with the original key at 5:05, delivering a fatal blow to Vale from the platform above. He cleaned the weapon, locked the door with the original key, and departed, leaving Vale to his fate. The mechanism, deprived of its keeper, stood still, the bells silent. Confronted with the evidence, Crane confessed, his voice heavy with resignation. The town, once synchronized to the beat of the clock, now grappled with the truth. The revelation was a shock, yet it brought a sense of closure. The mystery unraveled, the town began to heal, its rhythm gradually restored. As the detective prepared to leave, he reflected on the nature of time and trust. Harrow Falls, a town bound by its clock, had learned a valuable lesson. The clock now ticked in harmony once more, a reminder of the delicate balance between order and chaos, and the human hand that guides it. The air around the Harrow Falls church was heavy with a silence that felt almost tangible. The townspeople stood clustered outside, their faces a tapestry of disbelief and betrayal. The revelation of Reverend Crane's deception had hit them like a tidal wave, leaving a trail of emotional wreckage in its wake. Nearby, the detective observed the scene with a detachment that belied his own inner turmoil. He had uncovered the truth, but the weight of it lay like a stone in his chest. As the crowd murmured in hushed tones, the detective's mind wandered back to his days as a watchmaker. He often thought of time as a delicate dance of gears and springs, each part essential to the harmony of the whole. Trust, he mused, was much the same, fragile yet foundational. The clock of Harrow Falls had been thrown into chaos by Crane's machinations, but the real damage was far deeper, etched into the hearts of those who had once looked up to the Reverend for guidance. Nearby, the sexton stood apart from the throng, his eyes fixed on the ground. He had been the one to find Vale's body, and the memory haunted him. Guilt gnawed at his conscience, though he knew rationally he bore no blame. Relief mingled with his remorse. The truth was out, and the burden of suspicion had lifted from his shoulders. Yet as he replayed the events in his mind, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had missed something, some sign that might have prevented the tragedy. Vale's nephew, Thomas, lingered at the edge of the gathering, his thoughts a storm of conflicting emotions. He had come to Harrow Falls seeking a fresh start, but instead found himself ensnared in a web of suspicion and deceit. His debts in Providence seemed a distant concern now, overshadowed by the realization that he had unwittingly been part of a larger game. He pondered his own role in the events, grappling with the notion that his presence might have somehow influenced the outcome. As the initial shock began to subside, the townspeople turned their attention to the future. The church, once a beacon of unity, now stood as a stark reminder of the betrayal that had unfolded within its walls. Town meetings were convened to discuss the way forward, and the clock tower became a symbol of both the town's resilience and its wounds. The sound of the clock's restored ticking offered a semblance of normalcy, a rhythmic reassurance that life would continue, even in the face of upheaval. The detective, standing in the shadow of the tower, contemplated the clock's significance. Its silence had been a harbinger of chaos, yet its return to life signaled a restoration of order. He reflected on the parallels between the mechanical and the human, recognizing that both required careful tending to function harmoniously. The clock was more than just a timekeeper. It was a testament to the town's ability to endure and adapt. As the detective prepared to leave Harrow Falls, his role in the drama concluded, he shared a quiet moment with the sexton. "Clocks and relationships," he remarked, "both need attention to keep running smoothly." The sexton nodded, understanding the deeper truth in the detective's words. It was a lesson learned through pain, yet one that held the promise of healing. The detective's departure marked a turning point for the town. With the mystery resolved, the people of Harrow Falls began the slow process of rebuilding their lives. There was a sense of closure, yet the shadow of the past lingered, a reminder of the fragility of trust. The clock's steady ticking became a metaphor for the passage of time and the healing process that lay ahead. As the townspeople gathered for yet another meeting, the mood was one of cautious optimism. They spoke of plans to restore the church's reputation, to rebuild the community's trust in its institutions. The detective's investigation had laid bare the vulnerabilities within their society, but it had also illuminated their capacity for resilience and renewal. The detective, now a distant figure on the horizon, carried with him the lessons learned in Harrow Falls. He understood that while mysteries could be solved, the human heart was a more complex puzzle. Yet, in the quiet moments between ticking seconds, he found solace in the knowledge that he had helped bring a measure of peace to a town in turmoil. As the sun set over Harrow Falls, casting long shadows across the cobblestone streets, the clock tower stood as a silent sentinel. Its chimes, once a source of dread, now rang out with a renewed sense of purpose. The townspeople paused to listen, their hearts lifting with each resonant note. It was a sound that spoke of continuity, of time marching forward, carrying them toward a future where trust could be rebuilt and harmony restored. In the days that followed, Harrow Falls began to heal. The detective's insights had sown the seeds of change, prompting the community to reevaluate its values and priorities. The church, under new leadership, embarked on a mission to restore its standing, reaching out to those who had felt alienated in the wake of Crane's betrayal. The clock tower, its mechanism now running smoothly, became a focal point for healing and reconciliation. It was a symbol of the town's resilience, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there was hope for renewal. The townspeople, once divided by suspicion and fear, found common ground in their shared history and aspirations. As the detective's train pulled away from the station, he allowed himself a moment of reflection. His time in Harrow Falls had been a reminder of the complexities of human nature, of the delicate balance between truth and deception. Yet, it had also reaffirmed his belief in the power of understanding and empathy to bridge even the deepest divides. With each passing day, the clock's chimes continued to mark the hours, a steady rhythm that underscored the town's journey toward healing. The people of Harrow Falls, guided by the lessons of the past, moved forward with renewed determination, their eyes set firmly on the horizon. The detective's work was done, but the legacy of his investigation would endure. The townspeople, armed with the knowledge that trust must be nurtured and protected, embarked on a new chapter, one defined by resilience, unity, and the unwavering passage of time. As the first rays of dawn crept over the horizon, Harrow Falls lay in an eerie silence. The town, accustomed to the rhythmic tolling of the church bells, felt the absence of their sound as if the heartbeat of the community had paused. On that fateful morning of October 14, 1932, the clockmaker Edmund Vale was found lifeless at the base of the church bell tower, the only key to the locked door clutched in his hand. The mystery of how he came to be there, in a place locked from the inside, was as perplexing as it was unsettling. The investigation into Vale's death unfolded like the gears of a finely tuned watch, each discovery a cog in the intricate mechanism of truth. Our story begins with the discovery of Vale's body, a scene that posed more questions than it answered. The sexton, arriving to find the door locked and the bells silent, knew something was amiss. When the constable broke the lock and entered, they found Vale on the cold stone floor, the key in his right hand, and the brass winding handle, the murder weapon, cleaned and replaced on its hook. As the town reeled from the shock, a retired watchmaker turned detective arrived to unravel the mystery. Known for his meticulous nature and an uncanny ability to perceive the unseen, he began his investigation with a keen eye for detail. The locked door, the silent bells, and the precise nature of the blow all pointed to a well-planned act rather than a crime of passion. The first clue came from Vale's own meticulous records. His ledger, found under the winding bench, revealed entries that hinted at interference with the clock's timing. On October 13th at 5:45 a.m., Vale noted, "Mechanism advanced. Corrected. Third time this month." Someone had been tampering with the clock, and Vale, in his silent way, had been logging these anomalies rather than reporting them. This discovery suggested a motive beyond mere accident or random violence. Further investigation led to Reverend Aldous Crane, a figure of authority and respect within the community. However, his actions on the morning of Vale's death raised suspicions. Crane was seen leaving the rectory at 5:10 a.m., claiming he was walking for his health, a routine confirmed by his housekeeper as starting no earlier than 6. This deviation from his usual pattern suggested something more than a simple morning stroll. The clock itself held another clue. When examined after the incident, it was found to be 22 minutes fast. Had it struck 6 as scheduled, it would have done so at 5:38 a.m., a time when the town was still asleep. This discrepancy hinted that someone needed the bells to ring early, or not at all. The implications of this were profound, suggesting manipulation not just of time but of the town's very routine. In the course of the investigation, 2 red herrings emerged. Vale's nephew, Thomas, was in town the night before and had debts that could have provided a motive. However, he had no key to the tower and no means of entry. Additionally, a forged copy of Vale's ledger was discovered among his effects, suggesting he might have been fabricating maintenance records. Yet, upon closer examination, the original ledger showed no falsification, indicating the copy had been planted to mislead. As the detective pieced together the evidence, a new theory began to take shape. If Vale was killed before 5:30 and the door was locked from the inside, the killer had not exited through it. This suggested two possibilities. The killer was still inside when the sexton arrived, or they had never entered at all. This line of thinking led to a startling revelation. The crime was not a spontaneous act, but a meticulously designed mechanism. Much like the clock itself, the breakthrough came with the discovery of a second key, the original, which had been entrusted to Reverend Crane 9 years prior. Vale had a copy made when the original showed signs of wear, intending to retire it, but never did. This second key, documented in an entry from 1923, had been forgotten until now. It was the missing piece of the puzzle, explaining how Crane had accessed the tower undetected. Crane's motive was rooted in financial manipulation. An examination of the church's financial records revealed that the mill owner, who contributed significantly to the town's income, had renegotiated his tithing based on church attendance. By adjusting the clock, Crane manipulated the service time, reducing attendance, and consequently his obligation to report accurate congregation numbers to the diocese. Vale discovered this manipulation and confronted Crane, leading to his untimely death. The detective, with all pieces now in place, confronted Crane. The Reverend, faced with irrefutable evidence, confessed to his actions. He had entered the tower with the original key, delivered the fatal blow from a platform above, cleaned the weapon, and exited, locking the door behind him. Vale's body, with his own key in hand, had fallen against the rope, leaving the bells silent. The resolution of the case left Harrow Falls in a state of introspection. The town, so reliant on the precision of its clock, had been manipulated by the very person entrusted with their spiritual guidance. As the detective reflected on the nature of time and trust, he understood that the true measure of a community lies not in its routines, but in the integrity of those who uphold them. In the aftermath, Harrow Falls began to heal. The clock, once again ticking in harmony, served as a reminder of the delicate balance between time and trust. The detective, having restored order, left the town with a sense of accomplishment and a renewed appreciation for the intricacies of human nature. And so, the mystery of Edmund Vale's death, like the hands of a clock, came full circle, leaving behind lessons of vigilance, integrity, and the timeless pursuit of truth. As the retired detective stood outside the church of Harrow Falls, his eyes traced the contours of the bell tower, the scene of the mystery he had just unraveled. The crisp morning air carried the faint scent of autumn leaves, and the quietude of the town seemed almost sacred in its stillness. He found himself lost in thought, reflecting on the journey that had led him from the intricate world of watchmaking to the complex puzzles of detective work. His life as a watchmaker had been defined by precision and patience. Every tick of the clock was a testament to his meticulous nature, each gear and spring a part of a greater whole that demanded his unwavering attention. It was this same attention to detail that had made him an exceptional detective. The transition from crafting timepieces to solving mysteries felt natural, driven by an insatiable curiosity and a love for puzzles that refused to let him rest until every piece fell into place. Standing there, he couldn't help but reflect on the case's resolution. The lessons learned were profound, resonating deeply with his past experiences. Trust and time, two elements as intertwined in life as they were in the workings of a clock. He recalled a pivotal moment from years ago, a personal betrayal that had taught him the fragility of trust. It was a lesson that echoed through the case of Edmund Vale, where trust had been manipulated and time had been the silent witness. His thoughts drifted back to Harrow Falls, a town that had become both a refuge and a challenge. He was an outsider by birth, yet the townspeople had come to trust him, seeking his expertise even in retirement. His connection to the town was forged through shared experiences and mutual respect. The sexton, a man of few words but deep gratitude, had been one of the first to express relief when the truth came to light. A local shopkeeper, too, had thanked him, her eyes bright with the promise of a new beginning for the town. The detective's journey through the investigation had been as much emotional as it was intellectual. Initially, it had been the challenge that drew him in, the allure of a mystery wrapped in the enigma of a locked tower. But as the layers peeled away, he found himself invested in the town's well-being and in seeking justice for Edmund Vale. The case had become personal, awakening a part of him that had long been dormant. Solving it had not only brought closure to the town, but also allowed him to reconcile with his own past, finding peace in his retirement. As he walked away from the church, the detective contemplated the nature of time. It governed lives with a constancy that was both reassuring and relentless. Much like the clock he once crafted and repaired, time was a mechanism that ticked on, indifferent to human affairs. Yet the human experience of time was anything but constant. It was filled with moments of joy, sorrow, and revelation, each one a gear in the intricate machinery of life. He paused, reaching into his pocket for his watch, a relic of his past life as a watchmaker. The familiar weight of it in his hand was comforting, a reminder of his dual identity. As he checked the time, a smile played on his lips. The mystery was solved, the town was at peace, and he had found a new equilibrium. The clock of Harrow Falls ticked in harmony once more, and with it, so did the heart of the detective. This journey had been one of discovery, not just of the truth behind Edmund Vale's death, but of his own capacity for growth and change. The detective had learned that while time is a constant, it is how we choose to spend it that truly defines our lives. In solving the mystery, he had also solved a part of himself, finding solace in the knowledge that both he and the town had emerged stronger and more resilient. As he continued down the cobblestone path, the detective felt a sense of fulfillment. The case had been a bridge between the past and the future, a testament to the power of observation, patience, and an unwavering pursuit of the truth. It was a reminder that even in retirement, his skills and instincts remained sharp, a testament to the enduring nature of curiosity and the human spirit. In the end, the detective's journey was not just about solving a mystery. It was about understanding the intricate dance between time and trust, and how both can shape the course of a life. As he walked into the future, he carried with him the lessons of the past, ready to face whatever mysteries lay ahead, confident in the knowledge that he had found his place in the world once more. The morning sun filtered through the trees, casting long, dappled shadows across the cobblestone path leading to the Harrow Falls church bell tower. The air was crisp, with the scent of autumn leaves, mingling with the distant murmur of townsfolk starting their day. At the base of the tower, the detective stood, his gaze fixed on the imposing structure that had become a silent witness to the town's most perplexing mystery. As he stood there, the detective felt the weight of the town's history pressing down on him. This tower, once a proud symbol of unity and precision, now loomed as a monument to the secrets it held. The detective's presence here marked a pivotal moment, a turning point where the resolution of the mystery was beginning to take shape, and with it, the possibility of healing for Harrow Falls. With a deep breath, he began his ascent, each step echoing softly in the confined space of the spiral staircase. The detective's mind was a whirl of thoughts, reflecting on the nature of trust and the fragility of human relationships. This introspection was mirrored in the town's atmosphere, where whispers of betrayal lingered like a stubborn fog. Upon reaching the top, he paused to take in the view. The town spread out below him, its streets and buildings bathed in the soft glow of morning light. Here at this vantage point, the detective felt the passage of time acutely. It was a reminder of the delicate balance between past and present, between the actions taken and the consequences that followed. Turning his attention to the task at hand, the detective began his meticulous examination of the crime scene. The bell tower, with its intricate clock mechanism, held secrets that had eluded him before. As he moved with practiced precision, his eyes caught details that had been overlooked in previous investigations. A small, almost imperceptible scratch on the floorboards, a slight misalignment in the clock's gears. These were the breadcrumbs leading him to the truth. It was then that he discovered the hidden compartment within the clock mechanism. His heart quickened as he opened it to reveal its contents, a second key and a letter. The letter, penned by Reverend Crane, was a confession, laying bare his motivations and remorse. This revelation was a turning point, not only providing closure to the mystery, but also humanizing Crane. It invited the detective and the reader to ponder the complexities of guilt and redemption. The detective's journey through the tower was not just about solving a crime. It was about understanding the intricate tapestry of human nature. As he pieced together the final elements of the case, he felt a profound sense of empathy for Crane. This empathy marked his evolution from a mere problem solver to a compassionate observer of human frailty. It was a growth mirrored by the town itself, as the people of Harrow Falls began to reconcile with the truth and the events that had transpired. With the mystery unraveling before him, the detective descended the tower, the weight of the case lifted from his shoulders. Yet, the implications of its resolution settled in, leaving him with a newfound understanding and respect for the passage of time. At the threshold, he paused, looking back at the tower with a sense of closure and reflection. As he stepped out into the morning light, the detective carried with him the knowledge that the town of Harrow Falls was on the cusp of a new beginning. The resolution of the mystery was not just an end, but a bridge to a new chapter, where the town could find its equilibrium once more. The detective's examination of the scene was more than a physical investigation. It was an emotional journey that captured the essence of the human condition. The discovery of Crane's letter and the second key were moments crafted to evoke surprise and empathy, leaving readers to reflect on the duality of human nature and the power of forgiveness. In this pivotal subchapter, the detective's journey was about understanding, not just solving. It was about connecting the narrative threads and offering readers a satisfying and thought-provoking conclusion to the mystery of Harrow Falls. The detective's thoughtful examination and the poignant discovery of Crane's letter were moments of impact, resonating with readers and leaving a lasting impression. The town of Harrow Falls, synchronized to the church clock, had always relied on Edmund Vale's meticulous nature. His role as the clockmaker was one of precision and trust, a man who measured the world in seconds and trusted it accordingly. But on that fateful morning of October 14, 1932, the clock failed to chime, and the town's trust was shattered. The sexton's discovery of the locked tower door and the silence above was the first sign of trouble. When the constable broke the lock and found Vale's body with the key in his hand, the mystery of the locked door and the silent bells set the stage for the investigation. As the retired watchmaker turned detective began his examination of the crime scene, the initial clues revealed an anomaly. The locked door, the absence of any other exit point, and the silent bells all pointed to a mystery that defied explanation. But the detective's keen eye and methodical approach soon uncovered the truth hidden within the tower's walls. The discovery of Vale's ledger and the tampered clock entries provided the first clues to the mystery. Reverend Crane's suspicious early morning walk added to the intrigue, while red herrings like Vale's nephew's debts and the forged ledger complicated the investigation. But it was the detective's realization of a second key that unraveled the mechanism behind the crime. His investigation into the church's financial records revealed the motive behind Crane's manipulation of the clock. The confrontation with Crane and his admission of guilt brought the mystery to a head, revealing the significance of the second key. As the town grappled with the truth and its implications, the detective reflected on the nature of time and trust. Harrow Falls, once again synchronized to the church clock, adjusted to a new equilibrium, the clock ticking in harmony. The detective's journey through the tower was a testament to the power of observation and understanding. His examination of the scene was not just about solving a mystery, but about connecting with the human condition. It was a journey of growth and empathy, offering readers a satisfying and thought-provoking conclusion to the mystery of Harrow Falls. In examining the scene, the detective's journey was about understanding the complex tapestry of the human condition. It was about tying together the narrative threads and offering readers a satisfying and thought-provoking conclusion to the mystery of Harrow Falls. The detective's thoughtful examination and the poignant discovery of Crane's letter were moments crafted to evoke a sense of surprise and empathy, leaving readers to reflect on the duality of human nature and the power of forgiveness. In the hushed confines of the Harrow Falls bell tower, the detective stood alone, surrounded by the echoes of a mystery that had once gripped the town in its relentless hold. The air was still, save for the faint rustle of leaves from the nearby trees, a gentle reminder of the world outside this secluded chamber. The locked door, now ajar, was more than just a physical barrier. It had become a symbol of the secrets and lies that had ensnared the community. The detective, a man whose life had been governed by the precision of time and the intricacies of mechanical truth, found himself reflecting on the journey that had brought him here. The locked door had once been an insurmountable obstacle, a challenge that demanded to be unraveled. Now, as it stood open, it represented the town's collective awakening to the truths that lay hidden behind its wooden facade. As he pondered the events that had unfolded, the detective revisited the key players who had shaped the mystery. Reverend Crane, with his clandestine manipulations of the clock, had unwittingly set the stage for the drama. Vale's nephew, though a red herring, added layers to the unfolding narrative. Each character, each clue, was a piece of the puzzle that had to be meticulously assembled before the truth could emerge. Outside the church, the townspeople gathered, their faces a tapestry of emotions. Relief mingled with betrayal, trust was shaken, and yet, amidst the turmoil, there was a shared understanding that the mystery had irrevocably altered their community. The detective observed these reactions, noting how the silent clock, much like the mystery itself, had woven its way into the very fabric of their lives. In a moment of poignant clarity, the detective addressed the townspeople. His voice, steady and resonant, carried the weight of wisdom and experience. "The truth," he began, "is not merely a collection of facts. It is a force that shapes us, challenges us, and ultimately sets us free. Time, much like truth, is relentless. It reveals our hidden selves and heals our deepest wounds." His words hung in the air, a bridge to the town's path toward healing and renewal. The detective spoke of time not just as a measure of hours and minutes, but as a force that could mend broken trust and restore order. His speech was a balm to the townspeople, offering them a way forward, a way to embrace the future with renewed hope. As the detective turned inward, his thoughts drifted to his own journey. The locked door had been a source of frustration, a challenge that demanded perseverance and ingenuity. Yet, it was also a testament to the power of uncovering hidden truths, of peeling back layers to reveal the core of human nature. He acknowledged the complexities of solving a mystery intertwined with personal and communal histories, and the locked door, once a symbol of defeat, now represented triumph. With a sense of closure, the detective approached the door to the bell tower once more. This time, he locked it with a calm assurance, knowing that the mystery had been laid to rest. As he walked away, the church bells began to toll, their sound resonating through the town, marking the hour and signaling a return to normalcy. The bells, once silent, now filled the air with their familiar melody, a symbol of the town's readiness to embrace the future. The townspeople, standing in the shadow of the bell tower, felt the weight of the past lift from their shoulders. The mystery, once a dark cloud over their lives, had been dispelled, leaving in its wake a renewed sense of community and resilience. The detective's insights had offered them a way to move forward, to rebuild trust and find strength in their shared experiences. The locked door puzzle had been more than just a mystery to solve. It was a lesson in the power of truth and the resilience of the human spirit. It had bridged the gap between the resolution of the mystery and the town's journey toward healing, leaving a lasting impression of perseverance and hope. As the detective made his way down the winding staircase of the bell tower, he carried with him the knowledge that truth, much like time, was an unstoppable force. It could not be contained or silenced, and in its wake it left a path of clarity and understanding. The town of Harrow Falls, once bound by the ticking of the clock, was now free to forge its own path, guided by the lessons of the past and the promise of the future. In the days that followed, the townspeople began to rebuild, their lives no longer dictated by the silent clock. The church bells rang out with renewed vigor, marking the passage of time with unwavering precision. The detective, having fulfilled his role, returned to his quiet life, content in the knowledge that the mystery had been solved and the town had found its way back to harmony. The locked door puzzle, once a formidable challenge, had become a testament to the power of truth and the enduring strength of community. It was a reminder that even in the face of adversity, there was always a path forward, a way to heal and rebuild. The town of Harrow Falls, with its clock once again ticking in harmony, was ready to embrace the future, guided by the lessons of the past and the promise of new beginnings. The morning air was crisp, a biting chill that wrapped around Harrow Falls as it slowly awakened. The town, usually stirred by the resonant chime of its church bells, found itself wrapped in an unusual silence. The absence of the bell's toll was more than just a missing sound. It was a disruption of the town's heartbeat. Every shopkeeper, every worker, every child waiting for school felt the anomaly. And at the center of it all was the clockmaker, Edmund Vale, whose life had been as precise as the mechanisms he tended. Edmund Vale was a man of routine, a craftsman who understood the language of gears and springs better than that of people. For 11 years, he had been the guardian of time in Harrow Falls. His days were marked by the winding of the clock, each turn of the handle a promise of order and predictability. Vale's ledger, a leather-bound book, was his silent companion, faithfully recording every adjustment and anomaly. It was this ledger that would become the key to unraveling the mystery of his untimely death. On October 14, 1932, the town's rhythm faltered. The sexton, arriving to open the church, found the door to the bell tower locked. He knocked, waited, and then knocked again. Silence. With a growing sense of unease, he fetched the constable. Together, they forced the door, the lock yielding with a reluctant snap. Inside, they found Vale, sprawled on the cold stone floor, the key to the tower clutched in his lifeless hand. The scene was a puzzle, a locked door, a silent bell, and a man who should have been alive. The constable, a man of simple logic, was baffled. The door had been locked from the inside, and there was no sign of another exit. The windows were too narrow for escape, and yet here lay Vale, a victim of a single, lethal blow to the back of his head. The weapon, the brass winding handle, had been cleaned and hung back in its place, a testament to the killer's meticulous nature. As the investigation began, the town buzzed with speculation. Vale's ledger, found under the winding bench, provided the first real clue. An entry from the previous day read, "Mechanism advanced, corrected, third time this month." It was a cryptic note, but one that hinted at interference with the clock. Someone had been tampering with the time, shifting it forward and back, and Vale had been quietly documenting these changes rather than reporting them. Enter the detective, a retired watchmaker with a keen eye for detail and a habit of noting the time of every observation. He approached the case with the same precision he once applied to his craft. The locked door presented a logical conundrum. If Vale was killed before 5:30 and the door was locked from the inside, then the killer had not exited through it. This realization opened a new line of inquiry. Perhaps the killer had never been inside the tower at all. As the detective delved deeper, the town's secrets began to unravel. Reverend Aldous Crane, a figure of authority and respect, emerged as a person of interest. Witnesses placed him outside the rectory at an unusually early hour on the morning of the murder. His explanation, a morning walk for health, was contradicted by his housekeeper, who confirmed that Crane never left the rectory before 6. The detective noted this discrepancy, adding it to the growing list of anomalies. The clock itself provided another clue. When examined after the murder, the mechanism was found to be 22 minutes fast. Had the bells rung at 6, they would have sounded at 5:38 a.m., a time when the town was still asleep. This adjustment suggested a deliberate manipulation of the schedule, but for what purpose? Red herrings abounded. Vale's nephew, Thomas, was in town the night before the murder. He had debts in Providence and stood to inherit the watchmaking shop. Yet, without access to the tower key, he could not have been the killer. A forged copy of Vale's ledger was also found, hinting at falsification, but the original showed no such tampering. These distractions only served to deepen the mystery. The breakthrough came with the discovery of a second key. Not a duplicate, but the original tower key, retired 9 years ago due to wear. Vale had entrusted it to Reverend Crane for safekeeping, a fact documented in an old ledger entry that had gone unnoticed. This revelation shifted the investigation's focus. The detective now understood that Crane had the means to enter the tower undetected. Further examination of the church's financial records revealed the motive. The mill owner, who controlled the majority of the town's income, had renegotiated his tithing arrangement based on church attendance. By manipulating the clock, Crane could alter the service times, reducing attendance and thus his reported numbers to the diocese. Vale, meticulous as ever, had discovered this manipulation and confronted Crane privately. The detective pieced together the timeline. Crane entered the tower with the original key at 5 past 5, struck Vale from the platform above, cleaned the handle, descended, and locked the door with the original key. Vale's body fell against the rope, his hand still clutching his own key. The bells remained silent. In a tense confrontation, the detective presented his findings to Crane. The Reverend, faced with the weight of evidence, confessed. His actions, driven by desperation and greed, had led to Vale's death. The town, once synchronized by the chime of the bells, was now faced with the reality of betrayal from within its own ranks. As Harrow Falls grappled with the truth, the detective reflected on the nature of time and trust. Vale had been a guardian of both, his life a testament to the precision he cherished. In his death, he had left behind a legacy of truth, one that the town would carry forward as it adjusted to a new equilibrium. The clock once again ticked in harmony, a reminder of the delicate balance between time and human nature. Reverend Aldous Crane had always been an early riser, but on the morning of October 14, 1932, his walk was not dictated by the tick of the church clock. The air was heavy with the promise of rain, a damp chill that clung to the skin and whispered secrets from the mist. Crane pulled his coat tighter around his shoulders as he stepped out of the rectory, each footfall a deliberate echo against the cobblestones. Harrow Falls was a town that thrived on precision. The church clock was its heartbeat, a mechanical symphony orchestrated by Edmund Vale. For 11 years, Vale had been the silent guardian of time, ensuring that each chime was a promise kept. Yet on this particular morning, the bells remained silent, and the town's rhythm faltered. Crane's walk was ostensibly for his health, a routine he claimed to maintain with religious fervor. But today, there was an urgency to his stride that belied the casual purpose. The streets were empty, the town still slumbering in the pre-dawn hush. As he passed the church, its looming tower cast a shadow that seemed to stretch and yawn, reaching across the cobblestones as if to touch him. Inside the tower, the scene was one of unsettling tranquility. Edmund Vale lay on the cold stone floor, the key to the tower clutched in his hand like a talisman. The constable had broken the lock after the sexton raised the alarm, revealing a tableau that defied explanation. A single blow had felled Vale, precise and lethal, delivered with the very tool of his trade, the brass winding handle, now innocuously replaced. As the sun crested the horizon, casting a pale light over Harrow Falls, the detective arrived. A retired watchmaker turned consulting detective, he was a man who understood the language of gears and levers, of time measured not just in seconds but in intentions. His notebook was a testament to his methodical nature, each observation meticulously noted with the time of day, a habit from his years spent crafting precision instruments. The detective's first task was to reconstruct the sequence of events. The locked door was an anomaly that demanded attention. If Vale had been killed before 5:30 and the door was locked from inside, then the killer had not left through it. This revelation suggested two possibilities. The killer was either still in the tower when the sexton arrived, or they had never been inside at all. Reverend Crane's early morning walk became a focal point of the investigation. His departure from the rectory at 5:10 a.m. was unusual, a deviation from his well-documented routine. The housekeeper confirmed that Crane typically left for his walk after 6, a discrepancy that could not be ignored. The detective, with his keen eye for detail, noted this inconsistency, probing further into Crane's motivations. Vale's ledger, a leather-bound chronicle of the clock's maintenance, offered another layer of complexity. An entry from October 13th at 5:45 a.m. caught the detective's attention. Mechanism advanced, corrected, third time this month. Someone had been tampering with the clock, adjusting its timing. Vale had documented these interferences but had not reported them, a decision that hinted at a deeper understanding of the town's dynamics. The clock itself was examined, revealing that it had been set 22 minutes fast. Had it struck 6 as calibrated, it would have rung at 5:38 a.m. an anomaly that suggested a deliberate manipulation. The detective pondered the implications. Someone needed the bell to ring early, or perhaps not to ring at all. This manipulation of time pointed to a motive that transcended mere mechanical tinkering. As the investigation unfolded, the detective's attention turned to the church's financial records. The mill owner, a man whose influence loomed large over Harrow Falls, had renegotiated his tithing arrangement based on the number of workers present at morning service. The detective's scrutiny of the records revealed a pattern. The service time had been quietly manipulated to reduce attendance, thereby reducing the church's obligation to report actual congregation numbers to the diocese. Vale had discovered the interference. He had not reported it, choosing instead to log it meticulously. This silent confrontation with Crane suggested an understanding between the two men, a shared knowledge that bound them in a web of secrecy and deception. The detective pieced together the timeline of Crane's actions, from his entry into the tower with the original key to the fatal blow delivered from the platform above. The revelation of a second key was the final piece of the puzzle, not a duplicate, but the original key, entrusted to Crane by Vale 9 years earlier. It was a detail documented in a ledger entry from 1923, a note that had gone unnoticed until now. Crane had used this key to enter the tower, strike Vale, clean the handle, and lock the door behind him. Vale's body, falling against the rope, remained a silent testament to the tragedy that had unfolded. The confrontation with Crane was inevitable. The detective, armed with the evidence and a timeline that left no room for doubt, approached Crane with a calm authority. The truth unraveled before them, a tapestry of motives and actions that had been meticulously woven over time. Crane's admission was a quiet surrender, an acknowledgement of the burden he had carried alone. As Harrow Falls grappled with the truth, the detective reflected on the nature of time and trust. The clock, once again ticking in harmony, became a symbol of the town's resilience, a reminder of the precision required to maintain the delicate balance of community life. Vale's legacy, though marred by tragedy, lived on in the rhythm of the bells, a testament to the man who had measured the world in seconds and found it wanting. In the end, the town adjusted to a new equilibrium, the clock's steady tick a comforting presence in the lives of its residents. The detective, having fulfilled his role, quietly departed, leaving behind a community forever changed by the events of that October morning. The key, still in Vale's pocket, was a poignant reminder of the secrets we carry and the truths that ultimately set us free. In the quiet aftermath of the mystery's resolution, the town of Harrow Falls finds itself in a reflective state, sifting through the remnants of false leads and misdirection that once clouded their path to truth. The detective, now settled in his study, sits amidst a sea of notes and evidence, pondering the intricacies of human behavior that led to such convincing diversions. The room is filled with the soft rustle of paper and the faint scent of ink, creating an atmosphere of contemplation as he revisits the key red herrings that misled the investigation. The first red herring to be explored is the financial troubles of Vale's nephew Thomas. Picture this: a young man, burdened by debts in Providence, standing to inherit the watchmaking shop. His desperation was genuine, his motives seemingly plausible. Yet, as the detective reflects, Thomas's struggles were ultimately unrelated to the crime. The nephew's financial woes, while compelling, served as a reminder of the complexity of human motivations and the ease with which they can mislead even the keenest of minds. Next, the narrative shifts to Reverend Crane's early morning walks, which cast a shadow of suspicion upon him. In a series of vivid flashbacks, we see Crane stepping out into the dawn, his figure silhouetted against the rising sun. His walk, once thought to be a clandestine meeting, is revealed as a moment of personal reflection. Burdened by his own secrets, Crane's true intentions were unrelated to Vale's death. This revelation not only clears his name but also adds depth to his character, showing a man grappling with his own moral dilemmas. The detective recalls how the town's whispers had nearly condemned Crane, highlighting the power of assumption and the fragility of reputation. The forged ledger, another pivotal red herring, is then examined under the detective's discerning eye. He recalls the moment he discovered the tampered entries, which initially pointed towards a conspiracy within the church's finances. As he reviews the ledger, the truth surfaces. It was a deliberate act by a disgruntled church member seeking revenge for past grievances. This subplot enriches the story's tapestry, weaving a narrative of personal vendetta that, while intriguing, ultimately does not alter the main resolution. The detective muses on the nature of deception, realizing how easily the fabric of truth can be manipulated by those with ulterior motives. Throughout this exploration, the detective's musings serve as a bridge between the chaotic investigation and the town's return to normalcy. His reflections offer a poignant commentary on the nature of red herrings in mystery storytelling, how they mirror life's unpredictability and the complexity of truth. Central to this is the understanding that red herrings, while misleading, are an essential part of the journey towards clarity. They challenge assumptions, test resolve, and ultimately enrich the narrative by adding layers of intrigue and depth. The subchapter concludes with a scene in the town square, where the clock now ticks in harmony. The detective stands amidst the townsfolk, observing their interactions subtly altered by the recent events. The air is filled with a sense of renewal, the community slowly adjusting to life post-mystery. The detective acknowledges that while the mystery is solved, the journey through misdirection has left an indelible mark on Harrow Falls, teaching its residents about trust, deception, and the resilience of their community. The potential for growth and understanding is significant, as the town learns to navigate the delicate balance between suspicion and trust. This exploration of red herrings provides closure to the misdirection elements of the story, allowing characters to grow and the plot to flow logically towards the town's new equilibrium. It maintains the storytelling tone, ensuring a seamless transition into the final reflections of the parent chapter resolution. As the detective takes a final look at the clock, now a symbol of restored order, he is reminded of the intricate dance between time and truth, a dance that Harrow Falls has learned to navigate with newfound wisdom. The morning sun cast long shadows across the cobblestones of Harrow Falls, painting the town in hues of gold and gray. The detective stood at the base of the church bell tower, his eyes tracing the towering structure that had become the focal point of his investigation. His mind was a whirl of possibilities, each one more elusive than the last. Yet, an unshakable intuition pulled him back here, to this place where time had seemingly stood still. As he ascended the narrow, spiraling staircase, the detective's footsteps echoed in the silence, a rhythmic reminder of the clock's usual, absent chime. He paused at the landing, where Edmund Vale had spent countless hours maintaining the intricate machinery that ruled the town's daily rhythm. The air was cool and still, carrying with it the faint scent of oil and metal. It was here, amidst the gears and levers, that the detective allowed his thoughts to wander back to Vale. A man of precision and solitude, Vale had been as much a part of the clock as the brass and steel that composed it. His meticulous nature was legendary, his records detailed down to the last tick of the second hand. Yet, in this place of order, chaos had erupted, leaving behind a mystery that defied logic. The detective's gaze fell upon the clock's mechanism, a marvel of engineering that Vale had tended to with unwavering dedication. As he examined it, a flicker of insight sparked within him. There was something about the way the gears meshed, the way the levers moved, something that whispered of secrets hidden in plain sight. Driven by this revelation, he reached into the heart of the mechanism, his fingers brushing against the cold metal until they found a small, concealed compartment. With a deft movement, he opened it, revealing a second key nestled within. It was identical to the one found in Vale's pocket, yet worn from use, its surface marked by the passage of time. The discovery was a turning point, a tangible piece of evidence that shifted the narrative of the case. The second key was not merely an object. It was a revelation that someone else had access to the bell tower. It unraveled the enigma of the locked door, casting a new light on the events leading to Vale's death. The weight of this discovery pressed heavily upon the detective's shoulders. The second key was a symbol of betrayal, a testament to the trust Vale had placed in another, a trust that had been shattered with a single, deadly blow. As the detective stood there, the implications of his find settled over him like a shroud, prompting a reflection on the fragile nature of trust and the ease with which it could be broken. With the key in hand, the detective descended the tower, his mind racing with the possibilities that this new evidence presented. He knew that the time had come to confront Reverend Crane, the man whose actions had woven a web of deceit around the town. The confrontation was inevitable, a clash of wills that had been building since the moment the detective had set foot in Harrow Falls. In the quiet of the rectory, the detective laid out his findings, each piece of evidence a step closer to the truth. The second key was the Lynch Pin, the undeniable proof of Crane's involvement in the manipulation of the clock and Vale's subsequent murder. Reverend Crane, faced with the incontrovertible evidence, could no longer maintain his facade. His motives, once hidden behind a veneer of righteousness, were laid bare. The manipulation of the clock's schedule, the financial gains, and the betrayal of a man who had trusted him implicitly, all were revealed in stark relief. The confrontation was charged with emotion, a battle of moral reckoning as Crane was forced to confront the consequences of his actions. The detective's voice was steady, yet imbued with the weight of the truth he carried. Crane's defenses crumbled under the relentless pressure of the evidence, his confession a bitter acknowledgment of his guilt. As the detective shared his findings with the townspeople of Harrow Falls, the revelation of the second key and Crane's subsequent confession brought a sense of closure to the community. The truth, though painful, allowed the town to begin the healing process, to rebuild the trust that had been so grievously compromised. The detective, having resolved the mystery that had gripped the town, took a moment to reflect on the enduring nature of time. In its relentless passage, time had revealed truths that had been carefully hidden, secrets that had festered in the shadows. Yet, it was also time that offered the opportunity for redemption, for the town to move forward with a renewed sense of unity and purpose. As the clock once again ticked in harmony with the lives of Harrow Falls, the detective knew that his work here was done. The mystery of Edmund Vale's death had been unraveled, the pieces of the puzzle fitting seamlessly into place. The story of the second key, of trust betrayed and justice served, would linger in the hearts and minds of the townspeople, a reminder of the delicate balance between truth and deception. In the quiet aftermath, the detective packed away his notebook, each margin filled with the observations and insights that had guided him to the truth. With one last glance at the clock tower, he turned and walked away, leaving behind a town forever changed by the revelations of the second key. The detective sat alone in the dimly lit church office, the only sound the rustle of paper as he sifted through the financial records. The room, once a mundane space of administration, now felt charged with the weight of hidden truths. Each ledger he opened was a window into the past, revealing the intricate web of deceit woven by Reverend Aldous Crane. The betrayal uncovered in these pages was not merely financial. It was a betrayal of trust, a manipulation of the very fabric of Harrow Falls. The detective's fingers traced the columns of numbers, his mind piecing together the narrative they told. Crane, once a pillar of the community, had used his position to embezzle funds, all while maintaining a facade of devout leadership. The records showed a consistent pattern of small discrepancies, each one insignificant on its own, but together forming a damning picture of greed. The detective's keen eye for detail, honed over years of watchmaking, saw what others had missed, the subtle shifts in numbers that spoke volumes. As he delved deeper, the detective discovered that Crane had been manipulating the church's financial statements to cover his tracks. The funds intended for community projects and charitable work had been diverted to personal accounts. This revelation was not just about money, it was about power and control. Crane had used his influence to bend the town to his will, all while cloaking his actions in the guise of religious duty. The detective's internal monologue reflected on the nature of trust and the consequences of its betrayal. He pondered how Crane, a man once revered, could have allowed ambition to overshadow his morality. It was a stark reminder of the fragility of human nature and the ease with which power can corrupt. The church, a symbol of sanctuary and community, had been tainted by deceit, leaving the townspeople to grapple with the loss of innocence. Amidst the financial records, the detective found a second key, a metaphorical one, hidden within the ledgers. This discovery was a turning point, unlocking the full extent of Crane's betrayal. It was not just the money, it was the manipulation of the town's trust and the exploitation of its faith. The detective realized that this was the catalyst for Harrow Falls' healing process, as the truth was finally laid bare. The emotional weight of the subchapter came from the detective's realization of the impact on the townspeople. Each entry in the ledger was a reminder of how Crane's actions had affected the community. The church, once a beacon of hope, now stood as a testament to the dangers of unchecked power. The detective knew that revealing the truth was only the first step. Rebuilding trust would take time and effort. The subchapter concluded with a town meeting where the detective presented his findings to the community. The townspeople reacted with a mix of shock, anger, and sadness, but also with a sense of relief that the truth had been uncovered. The detective's speech emphasized the importance of trust and accountability, urging the community to learn from the past and move forward together. He spoke with a quiet authority, his words resonating with those who had gathered to hear the truth. In crafting this subchapter, the focus was on maintaining the storytelling tone that had captivated readers throughout the book. The detective's character remained authentic, showcasing his growth from a retired watchmaker to a respected detective who had earned the trust of the community. The plot flowed logically, with each revelation feeling inevitable and earned. This subchapter served as a bridge to the town's adjustment to a new equilibrium, setting the stage for the resolution of the story. The detective's journey through the financial records was more than just an investigation. It was a journey into the heart of Harrow Falls. It was a reminder that even in the darkest times, the truth has the power to heal. The town, once synchronized to the church clock, now found itself resetting its moral compass, guided by the lessons learned from Crane's betrayal. As the detective closed the final ledger, he knew that the work was far from over, but the first step had been taken. The truth was out, and with it, the possibility of redemption. The detective's final words to the community were a call to action, a reminder that trust is not given but earned. He urged them to rebuild, not just the church, but the bonds that had been broken. The townspeople listened, their faces a mix of determination and hope. The path ahead would not be easy, but it was one they would walk together, guided by the lessons of the past and the promise of a brighter future. Opening scene. The church stood silent, its air thick with the echoes of confrontation. Reverend Crane's voice, once commanding from the pulpit, now echoed only in the recesses of the detective's mind. The detective stood in the dim light filtering through the stained glass, each color a fragment of the puzzle that had finally aligned. The clock ticked on, its rhythm a stark reminder of the truth that had just been revealed. As the dust settled, the detective's gaze lingered on the altar, where the shadows seemed to dance with the secrets of Harrow Falls. Revelatory flashback. The detective's thoughts drifted back to the moment suspicion first crept in. It was a subtle thing, a whisper of doubt that grew louder with each irregularity uncovered. He recalled Crane's alibi, a story that seemed too rehearsed, too precise. Crane's peculiar interest in the clock's maintenance had always struck an odd chord, especially when juxtaposed with the financial irregularities in the church's records. These memories, vivid and sharp, wove themselves through the present, creating a tapestry of deduction that had led to the truth. The detective remembered the first time he noticed the discrepancy in Crane's routine. It was a chilly morning, the kind that made breath visible in the air. Crane had been seen leaving the rectory far earlier than his usual time. His housekeeper had confirmed that Crane never left before 6, yet there he was, striding purposefully through the mist at 5:05. This oddity, combined with the clock's mechanism being 22 minutes fast, painted a picture that was becoming increasingly clear: Crane's confession. In the quiet of the church, the detective's voice had been calm, each question a careful probe into Crane's defenses. Crane, initially steadfast in his denials, began to unravel under the weight of evidence. The detective recounted Crane's confession with a clarity that was both gripping and tragic. Crane admitted to manipulating the clock, orchestrating Edmund Vale's demise to cover up his embezzlement of church funds. The detective's methodical breakdown of Crane's actions, combined with the emotional weight of Crane's confession, provided a cathartic release, not just for the detective, but for the town itself. As Crane spoke, his voice cracked, the facade of righteousness crumbling to reveal the desperation beneath. He had entered the tower with the original key, a relic of trust given to him by Vale himself. Crane had struck Vale from above, a calculated blow that silenced the one man who could expose him. The detective listened, his heart heavy with the knowledge that justice, though served, came at a terrible cost, emotional fallout. The truth spread through Harrow Falls like wildfire, leaving shock and disbelief in its wake. The townspeople gathered in small clusters, their whispers carrying the weight of betrayal. The detective observed this emotional fallout with a heavy heart, reflecting on the complex nature of trust and the fragility of human relationships. The interconnected lives of the townspeople, once as synchronized as the clock itself, now seemed disjointed, each tick of the clock a reminder of the trust that had been broken. As the detective walked through the town, he saw familiar faces etched with confusion and hurt. Friends who had shared pews with Crane now questioned their own judgment. The detective understood the depth of their betrayal, knowing that trust, once shattered, is difficult to rebuild. Character development, alone in his thoughts, the detective's introspection deepened. He pondered his own motivations, the personal cost of solving the mystery weighing heavily on him. This moment of self-reflection added a new layer to his character, revealing vulnerabilities and a longing for understanding. The detective realized that his pursuit of truth was not just a professional obligation, but a personal quest to connect with the world around him. He considered the parallels between the clock's intricate mechanisms and the human heart. Both required careful maintenance, a steady hand to ensure they functioned harmoniously. The detective's growth was subtle yet profound, reinforcing his role as the moral compass of the story, symbolic resolution. As the detective stood beneath the clock tower, the bells finally rang out, marking the hour with resonant clarity. This auditory symbol of resolution signified the restoration of order and harmony in Harrow Falls. The detective watched as the town began to heal, the clock's rhythmic chime serving as a reminder of the passage of time and the enduring nature of truth. The detective took a deep breath, the crisp air filling his lungs with a sense of renewal. The bell's chime echoed through the town, a sound that had been absent for too long. It was a reminder that, despite the darkness that had enveloped Harrow Falls, light would always find a way through. Closing reflection. The detective's final thoughts were a meditation on the nature of time, trust, and the human condition. He mused on how easily time could be manipulated, how trust could be both a gift and a weapon. Yet he found solace in the resilience of the human spirit, the ability to heal and grow even in the face of betrayal. As he walked away from the church, the detective felt a sense of closure. The mystery had been solved, but the lessons learned would linger long after. He hoped that the townspeople of Harrow Falls would find peace, that the clock's chime would once again be a symbol of unity rather than division. The detective's poignant reflection left a lasting impact, encouraging readers to contemplate the broader themes of the story and their relevance to their own lives. The detective sat in his modest study, a sanctuary of quiet contemplation amidst the storm of a complex investigation. The room was cluttered with papers, sketches, and the schematics of the church's clock tower, each document a fragment of a larger puzzle. The rhythmic ticking of a small pocket watch on the desk served as a constant reminder of the case's central theme: time. It was this very theme that had bound the community of Harrow Falls to its church clock, and it was time that now held the key to unraveling the mystery of Edmund Vale's tragic demise. With a sharp mind, honed by years of meticulous watchmaking, the detective began to sift through the evidence. He spoke aloud, not for an audience, but to organize his thoughts, a habit formed from years of solitary work. October 14th, 1932, he murmured, as he revisited the timeline of that fateful morning. He began by piecing together the eyewitness accounts, the sexton's discovery, and the constable's initial investigation. Each piece of information was scrutinized for its validity and relevance, his keen eye uncovering subtle inconsistencies that had previously gone unnoticed. The narrative of the investigation unfolded like a tapestry, with flashbacks interwoven with present-time revelations. Readers were transported back to the moment the constable broke the lock, the discovery of Vale's body, and the silent bells, their silence now understood as a deliberate act rather than a mechanical failure. These moments were not just memories. They were the foundation upon which the detective built his case. A crucial turning point occurred when the detective revisited Reverend Crane's early morning walk. Initially dismissed as a red herring, Crane's walk became a focal point of the investigation. Through a careful re-examination of Crane's statements and the church's financial records, the detective uncovered a pattern of deceit and manipulation. This revelation was not just about uncovering Crane's guilt, but also about understanding the deeper motivations that drove him to such desperate measures. The detective's journey was one of both logic and emotion. As he pieced together the timeline, he reflected on the nature of trust and betrayal, pondering how a community so synchronized by time could be so easily fractured by it. This introspection was essential to understanding the human flaws and frailties that underlay the case. As the detective reconstructed the timeline, he felt a sense of closure, yet he was acutely aware of the lasting impact of these events on Harrow Falls. The clock, now repaired and chiming once more, served as a metaphor for the town's return to normalcy, albeit with the scars of recent events. To fully comprehend the detective's process, consider the methodical steps he took to reconstruct the timeline. Gathering evidence, the detective began by collecting all available evidence, from eyewitness accounts to physical artifacts. Each piece was cataloged and assessed for its potential relevance to the case, analyzing the timeline. By creating a detailed timeline of events, the detective could identify gaps and inconsistencies. This timeline served as a roadmap, guiding him through the investigation, identifying patterns. Through careful analysis, the detective identified patterns in the evidence. These patterns often pointed to underlying motives and connections between seemingly disparate events. Testing hypotheses. As new information emerged, the detective formulated and tested various hypotheses. This iterative process allowed him to refine his understanding of the case, drawing conclusions. With the timeline complete, the detective was able to draw conclusions that were both logical and supported by evidence. This final step brought clarity and resolution to the investigation. The detective's approach was not just about solving a mystery. It was about understanding the human elements that drove the events of that morning. He recognized that the motivations of the individuals involved were as important as the physical evidence itself. By piecing together the timeline, he was able to see the full picture, revealing the intricate web of deceit and betrayal that had led to Edmund Vale's death. One of the most compelling aspects of the detective's investigation was his ability to connect past events with present revelations. This dynamic interplay between past and present allowed him to uncover truths that had remained hidden for years. For example, the discovery of the second key, a revelation that rewrote the narrative of the case, was only possible because the detective had meticulously reconstructed the timeline. The second key, held by Reverend Crane, was a pivotal piece of evidence. It was not a duplicate, but the original key, entrusted to Crane by Vale himself. This revelation explained how Crane had been able to manipulate the clock's timing without detection. By adjusting the clock mechanism, Crane had shifted the bell's schedule, ultimately leading to the tragic events of October 14th. The detective's ability to see beyond the surface and delve into the deeper motivations of the characters involved was a testament to his skill and experience. He understood that the key to solving the mystery lay not just in the physical evidence, but in the human stories behind it. This understanding allowed him to piece together the timeline in a way that was both logical and emotionally resonant. As the subchapter drew to a close, the detective reflected on the lessons he had learned. He realized that trust and betrayal were two sides of the same coin, and that time, while a constant presence, could be manipulated and distorted by human actions. The clock, now repaired and chiming once more, served as a poignant reminder of the town's resilience and the enduring power of time. The detective's journey was one of discovery and introspection. By piecing together the timeline, he not only solved the mystery of Edmund Vale's death, but also gained a deeper understanding of the human condition. His reflections on trust, time, and betrayal resonated with the readers, leaving them with a sense of closure and a deeper appreciation for the complexities of human nature. In the end, the detective's meticulous reconstruction of the timeline was not just a means to an end. It was a journey of discovery that revealed the intricate interplay between time and human actions. Through his careful analysis and introspection, he was able to bring clarity and resolution to a case that had confounded the town of Harrow Falls. The vestry of Harrow Falls Church was cloaked in a somber light, the kind that seemed to seep through the stained glass, as if reluctant to disturb the silence. The detective stood there, a figure of calm determination amidst the shadows. This was the moment he had been meticulously working towards, the moment to confront Reverend Aldous Crane. The air was thick with anticipation, a silent testament to the gravity of the impending confrontation. The detective took a moment to reflect on the journey that had brought him here. Each clue, each red herring, had been a step along a winding path that led to this dimly lit room. He thought of Edmund Vale, the meticulous clockmaker whose life had been measured in seconds and whose death had thrown the town into disarray. The mystery of the locked tower door, the silent bells, and the key clutched in Vale's lifeless hand had been a puzzle that demanded resolution. The detective's resolve was unshakable, his mind a finely tuned mechanism ready to reveal the truth. Reverend Crane entered the vestry, his demeanor betraying a veneer of composure that barely masked the anxiety beneath. The detective watched him closely, noting the slight tremor in Crane's hands, the way his eyes darted around the room as if seeking an escape. It was clear that the Reverend was a man burdened by guilt and fear, and the detective intended to uncover the reasons why. The conversation began innocuously enough, with the detective asking about the church's operations. Crane answered with practiced ease, his voice steady but lacking warmth. As the detective gradually steered the dialogue toward the events of October 14, 1932, he noted the subtle shift in Crane's demeanor. The Reverend's responses became clipped, his composure slowly unraveling under the detective's calm, methodical questioning. The detective then introduced a pivotal piece of evidence, the existence of a second key to the tower. This revelation was like a stone cast into still waters, causing ripples of unease to spread across Crane's features. The detective recounted the timeline of events with precision, emphasizing the inconsistencies in Crane's story. The second key was the Lynch Pin that shifted the power dynamic, and Crane's facade began to crack. Under the weight of evidence and the detective's unwavering gaze, Reverend Crane's defenses crumbled. His confession was a torrent of emotion, a mixture of desperation and misguided intentions laid bare. Crane admitted to manipulating the church clock, to altering the bell schedule for financial gain, and ultimately to his role in Edmund Vale's death. The confession was a cathartic release, revealing the Reverend's motives rooted in a misguided attempt to control the town's perception of time and his own standing within it. As Crane's confession unfolded, the detective experienced a complex mix of triumph and melancholy. Solving the mystery brought closure, but it also highlighted the tragic elements of human nature and the consequences of deceit. The detective understood that while the truth had been uncovered, it came at a cost, a reminder of the fragile balance between trust and betrayal. The detective shared his reflections on the nature of time and trust, drawing parallels between the precision of a clock and the complexities of human relationships. He pondered the broader implications of the case, encouraging readers to consider how easily the fabric of trust can be unraveled by deception. This introspection provided a deeper understanding of the story's themes, resonating with readers long after the final page was turned. With the weight of the truth settling in, the detective left the vestry, the echoes of the confrontation lingering in the air. The narrative smoothly transitioned to the town's adjustment to a new equilibrium, setting the stage for the final moments of the parent chapter resolution. Harrow Falls, a town once synchronized to the chimes of its church clock, now faced the challenge of coming to terms with the truth and its implications. As the detective walked away from the church, his thoughts served as a bridge to the next chapter. Harrow Falls would need to reconcile with the reality of the events that had unfolded, to rebuild trust and restore harmony. The detective's reflections ensured the story's continuity, maintaining the storytelling tone that readers had come to expect, and setting the stage for the town's journey toward healing and understanding. The air was crisp and still as the detective stood in the church tower, the second key gleaming in his hand. This key was more than a simple piece of metal. It was a symbol of the betrayal that had woven its way through Harrow Falls. As he looked out over the town, the detective reflected on the journey that had led to this moment, a journey marked by deception, discovery, and the unraveling of truths long hidden. From this vantage point, the detective could see the entire town, each building a chapter in the story of Harrow Falls. The church clock, now silent, had been the heartbeat of the community, its rhythm dictating the flow of daily life. Yet, beneath its steady tick-tock lay secrets that had festered in the shadows. The discovery of the second key was not just the climax of the investigation, but a catalyst for understanding the fragile nature of trust. The narrative shifted to the town meeting in the church hall, where the detective prepared to present his findings. The room was filled with tension, a palpable mix of curiosity and apprehension. The townspeople sat in silence, eager to understand how such a mystery could unfold in their midst. As the detective began to speak, he recounted the sequence of events, emphasizing the pivotal role of the second key in Reverend Crane's manipulation of the clock. This was no ordinary key. It was the means by which Crane had controlled time itself, and metaphorically, the town's very heartbeat. As the detective's words echoed through the hall, the townspeople's reactions were varied. Some listened in disbelief, others with anger, and many with introspection. The second key had become a metaphor for the hidden truths within their community, prompting individuals to reflect on their own lives and relationships. It was a moment of collective realization, a reminder that trust, once broken, required effort and transparency to rebuild. Amidst the murmurs of the crowd, the mayor stood to address the townspeople. His voice was steady, yet tinged with the weight of recent revelations. "We must stand united," he urged, "and face this betrayal with resilience. Trust and transparency must be our guiding principles as we move forward." His words resonated with the crowd, a call to action that underscored the importance of rebuilding the bonds that had been fractured. The detective's internal monologue provided a bridge to the emotional core of the subchapter. He mused on the nature of time, not just as a sequence of moments, but as a fabric woven with trust, secrets, and revelations. The second key, once a mere object, now represented the delicate balance between truth and deception, and the necessity of vigilance in safeguarding integrity. As he pondered these thoughts, the detective realized that the true significance of the second key lay not in its physical form, but in the lessons it imparted about human nature. In the closing scenes, the narrative returned to the detective, who walked through the town as it adjusted to a new reality. He observed small acts of kindness and resilience, signs that Harrow Falls was beginning to heal. The clock tower once again chimed in harmony, a poignant reminder of the restored equilibrium. The detective felt a sense of closure, knowing that his work had helped to restore balance to the community. As he made his way home, the detective penned a letter to his late mentor, sharing the lessons learned from the case. He acknowledged the complexity of human nature and the enduring power of time to reveal truths. This introspective moment offered readers closure, reinforcing the book's themes of trust, time, and the human condition. The second key's significance was not just in solving a mystery, but in reshaping the understanding of trust within Harrow Falls. The detective's reflections served as a reminder that while the past could not be changed, the future was still unwritten. With renewed hope and a commitment to transparency, the townspeople of Harrow Falls could begin to rebuild their community, one moment of trust at a time. As the book drew to a close, readers were left with a lasting sense of introspection and hope, a testament to the enduring power of truth and the resilience of the human spirit. The morning sun cast a warm glow over Harrow Falls, a town slowly awakening to the news of Reverend Crane's confession. As the church bells rang at their usual time, the sound seemed to have regained its comforting rhythm, yet carried a new weight. The townsfolk gathered in small groups, whispering and exchanging glances. Their expressions were a mix of relief and betrayal, emotions as intertwined as the gears within the town's iconic clock. The clock tower, once a symbol of unity, now served as a reminder of the deception that had ticked beneath its face. At the heart of the town, the community hall buzzed with anticipation. A meeting had been called to address the seismic shift in their collective reality. Key figures from the mystery that had gripped Harrow Falls gathered: Detective Harrington, the sexton, and Vale's nephew, Thomas. The mayor took to the podium, his voice steady yet tinged with the gravity of recent events. "We stand here today, not just to acknowledge the shock we all feel, but to begin the process of healing," he stated, his words resonating through the hall. Detective Harrington, a retired watchmaker whose insights had been pivotal in unraveling the mystery, stepped forward. "The investigation has taught us the importance of vigilance and trust," he began, sharing insights into the meticulous work that had led to the revelation of Crane's guilt. "It is imperative that we remain vigilant, but also that we find ways to rebuild the trust that has been so deeply shaken." As the meeting continued, the narrative shifted to the personal reflections of several townspeople. Mrs. Abernathy, the local baker known for her warm pastries and even warmer heart, sat quietly in the back. She contemplated the fragility of trust, wondering how well she truly knew her neighbors. Her thoughts drifted to the conversations she had shared with Reverend Crane, the man she had once trusted implicitly. How quickly the familiar can become foreign, she mused, her mind a whirl of uncertainty. Meanwhile, Thomas Vale grappled with his own emotions. The relief of his uncle's name being cleared was tempered by the guilt of his own indiscretions. He had stood on the precipice of suspicion, his debts in Providence casting a long shadow over his character. Yet in this moment of clarity, he found solace in the truth. Perhaps this is a chance to start anew, he thought, determined to honor his uncle's legacy with integrity. Outside the town hall, Detective Harrington found himself drawn to the bell tower, a place that had become a focal point of his investigation. Standing alone, he reflected on the nature of time and how it can be manipulated, much like trust. Time is a constant, he pondered, yet it is the human hand that bends it to its will. This contemplation added a philosophical layer to the mystery, inviting readers to ponder the broader implications of the events that had unfolded. In the days that followed, the town took its first tentative steps towards rebuilding trust. The community decided to hold a weekly gathering at the church, transforming it from a place of secrets into a forum for open dialogue. Detective Harrington was invited to speak, offering guidance on maintaining transparency and fostering a culture of honesty. "Trust is not rebuilt overnight," he advised, "but through consistent, honest actions." As the narrative moved towards closure, Harrow Falls began to find a new equilibrium. The clockmaker's shop was restored, with Edmund Vale's legacy honored through a commemorative plaque. The inscription read, "In memory of Edmund Vale, who kept our time and our trust." It was a small but significant step in acknowledging the past while looking towards the future. Detective Harrington prepared to leave Harrow Falls, satisfied with the resolution, but acutely aware of the lingering impact of the case. Every tick of the clock is a chance to move forward, he reflected, his thoughts a blend of accomplishment and the realization that some questions may never be fully answered. The final moments of the chapter captured the emotional resonance of the events. A young child, blissfully unaware of the complexities surrounding him, watched the clock tower with fascination. To him, it was not a symbol of deceit but of wonder, a testament to the continuity of life. As the child waved at the hands of the clock, the townspeople found hope in his innocence, a reminder that life, though forever changed, continues with resilience. In the end, Harrow Falls was portrayed as a town ready to face the future with renewed strength. The mystery that had once divided them now served as a catalyst for unity and growth. The clock, once a silent witness to secrets, now ticked in harmony with the heartbeat of the town, a symbol of time's relentless march forward and the community's enduring spirit. The detective stood alone in the church tower, a solitary figure amidst the silence that now enveloped Harrow Falls. The morning light filtered through the stained glass, casting vibrant patterns on the stone floor. It was as if the town itself was emerging from shadows into clarity, much like the detective's own thoughts. He gazed out over the town, reflecting on the events that had transpired, each piece of the puzzle now fitting snugly into place. Emotional journey. He was a retired watchmaker, a man who had once measured life in the precise tick of a second hand. Now, he contemplated the nature of time and its relentless march forward. The people of Harrow Falls, he mused, were much like the clock, wound up by their routines and secrets. His thoughts drifted to Edmund Vale, whose life had been intricately tied to the ticking of the town clock. The irony of Vale's death at the hands of time's manipulation was not lost on him. Key revelations. As he reflected, pivotal clues surfaced in his mind: the forged ledger, the second key, and Reverend Crane's deceit. Trust, he realized, was a fragile thing, easily shattered by those seeking to control time and fate for their own purposes. The detective recalled the forged ledger found among Vale's effects, a planted deception meant to mislead. It was a stark reminder of how easily truth could be obscured. Personal growth. In this moment of introspection, the detective realized that his journey was not just about uncovering the truth, but also about understanding the complexities of human nature. He acknowledged his own biases and the assumptions he had made along the way. Each character involved in the mystery had their own nuances, their own motivations. This case was a lesson in humility and a reminder that every person, every action, was part of a larger tapestry, community impact. He envisioned Harrow Falls coming to terms with the truth. The townsfolk would gather for the first chime of the restored clock, a symbol of their acceptance of the past and hope for the future. The clock, once a tool of manipulation, would now represent unity and the passage of time as a shared experience. The detective imagined the townspeople standing together, listening as the clock struck the hour, its chimes echoing through the town, a reminder of the lessons learned and the peace restored. Conclusion: the detective left the church tower, feeling a sense of closure and purpose. As he stepped into the bustling town square, he observed the townspeople going about their lives, subtly changed but resilient. The clock struck the hour, its chimes resonating through the air, a testament to the enduring power of truth and reconciliation. The detective, once a man who measured the world in seconds, now understood the value of each moment, each decision, and the profound impact they could have. This reflection provided a necessary pause, allowing readers to process the emotional and thematic weight of the story. It bridged the tension of the climax with the tranquility of resolution, ensuring a seamless flow into the final moments of the book. Through the detective's introspection, readers gained deeper insights into the human condition, time's influence, and the enduring power of truth and reconciliation. Edmund Vale had always said that time was a river, flowing steadily, unyieldingly. But on the morning he was found at the base of the Harrow Falls church bell tower, time seemed to have paused, caught in a mystery that defied its own logic. The town, accustomed to the rhythmic chime of the bells, was thrown into disarray, its equilibrium shattered by silence. As the sun rose on October 14th, the residents of Harrow Falls awoke to a day unlike any other. The absence of the 6 o'clock chime was more than a missed beat. It was a rupture in the town's very fabric. For over a decade, Vale had been the guardian of this rhythm, his precision ensuring that life in Harrow Falls moved with clockwork regularity. Now, with Vale gone, the town faced a new reality, one that demanded a recalibration of both time and trust. Consider this scenario: a town where every aspect of life hinges on the tolling of a bell. From the opening of shops to the start of school, the bells dictated the tempo of daily existence. Yet on that fateful morning, the bells were silent, and with them the certainty they provided vanished. The sexton, upon finding the door locked and the tower silent, had set in motion a series of events that would unravel the mystery of Vale's death. The constable's discovery of Vale's body, with the key clutched tightly in his hand, presented a puzzle that seemed unsolvable. How could a man be murdered in a locked tower, with no apparent means of entry or exit for the killer. It was a question that would lead the town's investigator, a retired watchmaker known only for his meticulous note-taking, into the depths of human motive and mechanical precision. As the investigation unfolded, the clues began to surface, each one more perplexing than the last. Vale's ledger, with its cryptic entries about the clock's adjustments, hinted at interference from an unknown hand. Reverend Crane's early morning walk, out of character for a man of routine, added to the suspicion. Yet, these clues were only pieces of a larger puzzle, one that required a deeper understanding of the town's inner workings. The detective's realization of a second key was a turning point in the case. This revelation shifted the focus from the physical constraints of the tower to the human element behind the crime. The discovery of the church's financial records provided the missing link, revealing a motive rooted in greed and deception. The mill owner's renegotiated tithing arrangement had set off a chain of events that culminated in Vale's death, a consequence of his refusal to ignore the tampering he had discovered. In confronting Reverend Crane, the detective pieced together the timeline of events, revealing the calculated nature of the crime. Crane's manipulation of the clock was not merely a means to an end. It was a carefully orchestrated plan to maintain his financial advantage. Vale's confrontation with Crane had sealed his fate, the second key becoming both a tool and a symbol of betrayal. As the truth emerged, Harrow Falls was forced to confront the implications of the crime. The town's reliance on the clock had masked a deeper vulnerability, one that could only be addressed by restoring trust in the systems and individuals that governed daily life. The bells, once silent, now rang with renewed purpose, marking the beginning of a new equilibrium. Reflecting on the case, the detective considered the nature of time and trust. In a world where seconds could be manipulated and motives concealed, the challenge lay in discerning the truth beneath the surface. The resolution of Vale's murder was not just about justice. It was about restoring the balance between precision and humanity, ensuring that the river of time flowed unimpeded once more. In the end, the town of Harrow Falls found its rhythm again, the clock's chime echoing through the streets as a reminder of both the fragility and resilience of time. The lessons learned from Vale's death would not be forgotten, serving as a testament to the power of truth and the enduring quest for equilibrium in a world ever in motion.